the bottle's rim. The guilty write stories in invisible ink, but we'll drag it all up from the edge of the break. At the True Crime Cafe, the reckoning burns like a black bouquet. Every shadow will pay in the True Crime Cafe.
All right, all right. Well, first of all, my apologies. It looks like StreamYard has a mind of its own today, once again, doing whatever it wants, however it wants. You guys completely missed my intro and everything like that. So once again, let me say, thank you all for joining us, guys. Make sure you get a comfortable seat, fill your cups, do what you got to do to make yourselves at home. We are being joined today. We have a great show in store for you by the Custody Queens, once again, Kristen and Sam. Also a special guest with them, Mr. Ron Funke, will be joining us as well. And let me clarify something that, again, Ron's last name is not spelled Funke. It is spelled Funk. And again, because many people ask this, no, there is no relation to Bethany Funke between Ron and Bethany, guys. None at all. Ron's an appellate attorney that works with the Custody Queens, from my understanding, and is very good at what he does. He's always got some really interesting insights. I'm kind of excited that he's joining us as well tonight. So I'm looking forward to this, of course, and Sam and Kristen. As always, just a great show last time they were here with us, and I'm looking forward to another one today. So just so you guys know, Sam and Kristen are here with us now. I'm going to bring them up here just in 1 second. Ron's going to be just a little bit behind because he's stuck in court. So he'll probably be 20 minutes, half hour behind, but he'll be joining us here shortly as well. So, guys, make sure you share this out. Hit the like button on your way through the door. Let's get this started. Welcome, Sam. How are you today? And welcome, Kristen. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm great. I think Sam's muted.
Yeah, Sam, you're muted.
I think. Yeah, it looks like it. There she goes.
How to unmute a mic.
These things are so fun.
Really get me.
Welcome, Sam. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you guys back. And I'm super excited to have Mr. Funke joining us again. Funke, no E at the end, guys. So my whole thing was all messed up. But anyway, I wanted to clarify that so you guys didn't get confused with that. Like I said, he'll be joining us 20 or 30 minutes into this. He got stuck in court because these people do have jobs daily. This is what they do. And I'm graciously, I should say, it's very gracious of them to take time out of their busy days to join us to do this stuff. So thank you, ladies, again, very much for being here today.
We are happy to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited. And all three of us were actually in court this morning. Sam and I just finished a bit earlier, and Ron is actually on an appellate hearing. And sometimes those hearings tend to have a mind of their own, and you are at the mercy of the court. So he's going to jump on as soon as he is done.
I'm sure he'd rather be here.
I'm sure he would too, considering what you guys do. Yeah, absolutely. That appellate stuff is, I always say it wrong.
No, that's right.
It's wild. It is really wild and crazy sometimes, some of the stuff I've seen. So how have you guys been since we last spoke?
Great. Really can't complain. In Southern California, it's drizzled like a handful of times. So, none of us know how to drive out here in the rain. But gotcha. Yeah, it's been nice. Can't complain.
Well, at least it's better weather than we've had. It's been freezing cold here for probably a solid month.
Yeah.
And tons of snow, and I'm beyond ready for spring. Today, it's actually, I think it's like 52 degrees here today, and like my mother-in-law's outside playing in the yard, taking things down. This, and I'm like, don't get excited. This is not sticking around. I can promise you. Ohio, they like to tease us in Ohio. Mother Nature's got a sick sense of humor, and
Well,
like
it was
here's a
probably
nice
that
day.
same temperature here today, which is
Oh,
cold
for you
us.
guys. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't get at us, because California, we're way too spoiled with our weather, at least. But I mean, yeah, 50, that's freezing for us. Everyone else is like, oh my gosh, you know, we're like sitting on the beach chilling.
See us, like, well, people here in my state, we will throw shorts on, tank tops, and head outside like it's the middle of summer when it becomes 50, because we hate winter so bad. And especially the way this winter's been, oh my God, it's been nuts.
I bet.
Everybody gets cabin fever. We've all been stuck in our houses way too long, and it's ready. That time, I'm so ready for that. I'm telling you.
It's not good for anybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome everybody in the chat. Thank you to my moderators, my producer, Mikey, with the last 24, my videographer. Thank you. All of my amazing moderators. Thank you all for joining us today, guys. Please, for those of you just jumping in, again, we're being joined by the custody queens, Sam and Kristen, and here within probably about a half hour or so, appellate attorney Ron Funke will be joining us as well. So great show we have in store today. I'm super excited about this. And of course, we are delving into what has been going on with the Idaho 4 case, with the WSU lawsuit, so on and so forth. Lots of people have questions, I'm sure, and I'm really curious to see your guys' take on this and what your thoughts are for possibilities coming down the road, so on and so forth. So I've been looking forward to this for a minute.
Us too. It's kind of right up our alley. Just unfortunately, reading pages and pages and pages of court pleading. So it's interesting to say the least, and just watching kind of, I think the strategy unfold and seeing the response from WSU has been interesting as well.
Yeah, and I've been watching you guys are all over at Birdie's and a few other places. I've seen you guys working with B. She was just here with us the other day, and like you guys have been,
best. We love her.
Yeah, she's awesome. She really is.
We love her.
I can't wait to have her back again. We have a new show that we're running on Saturday evenings called The Verdict Room Unfiltered, and we're bringing different creators through to join us and put things out, and maybe I'll get you guys to join me for that one night.
Awesome.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah, B was our first show. We premiered it Saturday. She was our first guest, so it was very, very, very good. It's me, the last 24, my producer with his channel. Another channel by the name of Typically Unique, and then Bronx Tales True Crime. She joins us on a regular basis too, and we all break these things down through the week. So
those are all super great creators that we watch as well. What I love about B is she really gets that analysis on point. You know, yes. She asks the question. She doesn't generally jump to any conclusions. And, you know, I've always told her that if the YouTube or TikTok world doesn't work out, I think she'd be a hell of an attorney. But
I agree. Yes,
I'd recommend that she keep doing what she's doing, because it's definitely probably a lot better and less stressful.
She does amazing, and I think every time she's been here with us, people are they love her insight and the thoughts that she has about all these things. I agree with you guys. Truly and honestly, she probably would be a good attorney for sure. She's definitely asked the right questions, in my opinion, and like you said, she doesn't jump direct to a conclusion. She kind of gives it that once over and works it out until she comes up with something. And I like that. So,
yeah.
All right. So
I was just going to say, when we did the last show with Birdie, I know a lot of people, including Birdie, you know, that what we started off with this lawsuit was the biggest question that I think the three of us had was, why didn't the WS attorneys file a 12B6 motion? And for anyone that's just fancy legal jargon, all that is it's a motion to dismiss, because it doesn't have a strong enough factual claim supported by the evidence. If you're in state court, it's referred to as a demur, but in federal court, it's a 12B6. And, you know, I have not had any cases in federal court. And so, you know, Sam and I were talking about it, and we just wanted to do a little bit more research. My gut was either that they didn't file it for strategic reasons, A, because it could potentially delay the process. They're like, hey, let's go. We want to start the discovery. We don't want this to be a 3, 6, or 9 month delay.
Mhm.
And then I actually went and did a little bit more research. And it's also saying that when you're doing that motion, you're giving your opponent the ability to cure it. You're telling them exactly what you think is wrong or what the defect is in your motion. And if the court grants it, you're basically giving them the self-help tool to go fix exactly what you're planning on destroying. And so that's my personal opinion. I think that's why they didn't do the 12B6. Although Ron is of the opinion that there was really no big consequence for not doing it. Sam, what do you think about it?
I'm kind of in between. I like that I already have the benefit of being able to look at the response and kind of a meaningful response at that, so we can see where they're headed or where we think they're headed. I agree with you, Kristen, that obviously when you're going to a motion to dismiss, what the court a lot of times does is give you leave to amend to essentially bring forth a complaint that would satisfy the elements of the tort or whatever you are alleging that they are doing, they being WSU in this case. And in the initial kind of look at it, though, it's 126 some odd, maybe I have that number wrong, but it's over 100 pages of a complaint. So I think for me, when I'm looking at it, although I think a lot of the facts that are alleged are facts that they can't really prove at trial, which for me is problematic because you can say something, but you also have to prove it at trial. You that evidentiary burden at trial. So they're saying a lot of things to me that maybe meet the elements of what would technically be a hypothetical duty, but does that duty actually attach to WSU? Is it actually predictable what he, allegedly did? And then moreover, can you even prove the facts that you're saying you can? So I think, I agree with Ron and I agree with Kristen. I guess in this one, since I don't have a bunch of experience, especially in federal cases, I'm a little bit where you guys are with that, but
right.
That's just my initial thought.
And I also think just because it looks like they also threw pasta at the wall, right? They have a couple claims that at least I could potentially say, okay, maybe. And then I think they have another 100 that are just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you never know with this case. I don't know that the court would have just dismissed it completely on a 12B6 motion. And so when you have that possibility that the court is not going to do it, are you irritating the judge? Are you wasting judicial resources? And that happens and it's real. And whether the judge comes out and says it, that they're pissed or that this is wasting their time or their money, you never want to start off on the bad side.
Right.
We've learned that through, the other process. And Ron also was telling us, and when he gets here, he can elaborate more on it, but you can also do a request for a summary judgment after the discovery has been completed, which it's not the same procedure as a 12B6, but it's potentially the same remedy. And so I firmly believe that WSU was like, gloves off. We're done. And you don't have the evidence or the causation, or can you prove that there was the special duty and we want the discovery to start? That is the vibe that I took. I don't know everything, but that's just my perception.
Right. And with my understanding of it, I'm obviously not an attorney or any kind of anybody within the legal realm, but it just, it looked to me like the response to this was like, okay, no, we're not gonna play this game. They're coming full bore with this, and I'm kind of excited because my expectations of this, I think, well, no, we didn't talk after this was released, but I've told them before, I covered this before, my expectations were one of three things. One, that this was going to get tossed before it even got started. Two, that there was going to be an out-of-court settlement. And then three, of course, that this would go full bore. The last one was the one I expected the least. And I'm hoping, and it looks like it's going to be, they're going to take this to the trail and take it all the way. Because I was kind of like upset, like if this is settled out of court, that's kind of shameful to me. Like that's a big money grab to me. Okay. And if it gets tossed, that's what I truly expected that to be the what happened. Honest to God, they were just going to throw it out. No, you guys, if I'm talking to them, because I know you two see this, but I said to them, I said, if that were to happen, that's a shameful thing, because this is a university. I can't imagine with the reputation they need to carry to be the university that they are, especially with the courses that they offer in criminology and all that other kind of stuff, so on and so forth. It would be a really bad thing, I would think, to just settle out of court or to have this tossed rather than to fight this tooth and nail to prove their reputation, to prove that this is BS, so on and so forth, and everything else. Because again, there's people watching this every day, people that see this, people that would be wanting to send their children here. And if they don't believe in the school, they're not going to go. That's going to cause lots of problems. So,
yeah, I agree with that completely. And it would be especially problematic to settle at this stage of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because there has to be something that WSU is thinking about in like, okay, well, all it takes is for you to get an attorney and have that attorney make a series of allegations and sue you. Because, I mean, you can frivolously sue, which is the whole reason that you have the potential 12B6, right? Yeah. And it doesn't mean you're not necessarily going to have to pay attorney's fees for that frivolous lawsuit, but anyone can really sue anyone in civil court. You can at least sue someone frivolously. So if you kind of set a precedence for the school that like, if you sue, we'll back off, that's not going to be that's not.
Agreed. The doors that this could open, if that were to be the case, it's scary to me because does that mean that, and I've seen you guys talk about this many times. I'm sure you're probably sick of it. I know Birdie has, I have, many other people have as well. But if this were to be what it is, you know, this could open doors for people to sue for anything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's not how we should know. That would be horrible. Yeah. So for WSU to fight this with you know, the way they're going to be doing this is the way it looks like. I'm kind of really excited to this. And at the same time, you know, I said, all of us that are out here have absolute compassion for the families, for their loss, guys. There's no doubt about that. Any of us that are here, most of us are here because we want to see true justice for these families and the victims. A lot of us don't see that at this point, which is why we're out here doing what we're doing. And then another statement that came out of this that I saw was that they were, if I don't say it right, please understand, I don't have all that jargon. I don't know it all, but that they're basically going to be holding the families responsible for taking care of the financial aspect of this when it comes down to play, when they're looking at the different proceedings that need to be paid for, so on and so forth. It's another thing I think I read, unless I misread it, that they're going to, I guess, is that a counter suit that would come from WSU, or how does that work?
So with respect to like the out of pocket costs, so generally when a civil attorney takes the case, I might say, okay, all my legal work is going to be taken on a contingency. Generally that range is about 40%. It does change a little bit from different attorneys. And then if there are filing fees, which are paid directly by the party to the court or process server or discovery or any of those, generally those are paid by the client. But when you take a case like this, I mean, this is a huge investment that the victim's family attorneys are taking. Obviously, we don't know what that agreement is. They could be saying, hey, you guys are responsible for the out-of-pocket fees and costs, and you guys can divide that amongst the four. Obviously, I have no inside information, but my guess is that this is all kind of being taken up by the attorneys and potentially adding, hoping they're getting some sort of award, whether it's a settlement or whether it's through the court order. But then, Sam, you want to talk about the other part of it?
Yeah, so I think, and I might be off here, but what you're referencing is the fact that WSU in their response and their prayer for relief is saying, hey, essentially, by the way, not only do we want this dismissed, we want it dismissed with prejudice, which it can't be brought again, and further that we want costs. Now, anybody that's filing a response to a civil lawsuit is probably it's a very common responsive prayer for relief is, by the way, we want you to pay us for this frivolous suit. So it's kind of a general claim. It would be uncommon, in my opinion, for someone like WSU to not be asking for fees, but that's part of it, right? And I think I kind of talked about this quite a bit on Birdies, but it's sometimes the best defense is offense. So you don't want to go in and just say, no, it wasn't us. You want to go in and say, it wasn't us. Here's the problem. By the way, maybe it was someone else. So let's open discovery on all of these issues. Okay. And now you have something to be on the defense of. And then also, by the way, if you guys are wrong, we want fees for this because we shouldn't have to be expending those fees.
Exactly. And I asked that because a lot of people had brought that up to me at some point. say, how is this going to go? How's that going to go? And again, I don't understand a lot of this, which is why it's so wonderful to have you guys here. We had Andrew Myers was here with us 2 weeks back. I like to ask him questions as well. And
We love him
we
too.
do. Yeah, we really appreciate all of you guys that are out here that give us the opportunity to be able to do these things with you guys too. It's so amazing. So please understand how important you guys are to this community. I hope you guys know.
Thank you. We're actually filming with him soon too, to talk a little bit more, see what else is filed, because the hearing, obviously, the first hearing in this case is coming up here shortly on the 27th. I don't know that we're going to see anything exciting for the first couple hearings. It's just going to get the ball rolling. There's going to be a lot of housekeeping, type issues. But yeah, just like Sam said, it's like in divorce cases, when we file our summons and petition to start the divorce, you always put, what is any separate property assets, things that were had or acquired prior to marriage. Then you put whatever you have together. And then you always put that catch-all that says, we basically can add anything else that we find out down the road that we may not have known about, but was either community or separate.
Sure,
So I think they're always leaving that little catch-all, but whatever the agreement is, that's probably going to be between them, the attorneys, and the parties. And it'll be interesting that those will be attorney-client privilege. So I unless they're leaked, I don't know that we'll get much information on that.
Right. Well, before Ron gets here, I did have one of the main questions I had for you guys, and I see that one of my mods, she's very, very involved in this. She always has been. She knows quite a bit too, but she made a statement in here, and I kind of had the same question, okay? And I'm curious what you guys think about this too. Lucy, she says, I'm interested in what the complaint seemed to say without saying it. Talking about Washington law enforcement officers that were doing, she spelled it that way on purpose, I think, sexually natured things to the university students, so on and so forth, and how that all came to play. And there was a lot of that listed within the document here. Did you guys have any thoughts about how that all came into play with this, so on and so forth? I'm real curious.
Yeah. So, and I think Ron has actually a lot of thoughts on this issue. So we could circle back and ask him too. But I think that it goes back to what Kristen was saying, was throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And so it's trying to continue to, in my opinion, when I'm reading through this lawsuit, they are trying every single avenue to make stuff stick, to make duties be attached, to make there be some sort of financial liability to WSU, because I mean, just as a common sense perspective, why is WSU being sued? Well, because there would be a theoretical, hypothetical, I don't think they can really come up with these facts to support it, but theory that somehow a duty attached to BK because of the nature of his employment through WSU. To me, it's such a far stretch that everything they can throw in that direction is potentially beneficial to them, because a lot of it is going to get thrown out. I mean, that's my prediction. Obviously, I know the future, but when I look at even like the first couple of paragraphs of the complaint, like page 3 of the complaint, paragraph 4, to me was like the first standout, where they're saying on November 13th of 2022, there was a foreseeable and in fact predictable tragedy that occurred when Kohlberger entered the bedroom. I mean, to me, and it goes on, but it's like, you can allege that, and if you could prove it, then maybe you have like a couple of points in your category of how do I get financial relief. But I mean, I think everyone in probably the chat that's watching and that follows the suit, the case totally, even if they firmly believe it was BK and BK alone, how can you predict that? I mean,
you cannot. I don't think.
So I think that the whole remainder of the complaint to me mirrors that same premise. Is they're saying a lot of things that they truly don't have evidentiary support for. And so it makes for a very interesting topic and conversation, but I just don't think they have the evidentiary support for it. So I think they're throwing everything that way.
Well, on my side of things, with that whole thing being put out there, I mean, I looked into that stuff as well. It's there, it's out there. There's proof out there that the chief, the assistant chief, the captain, they all retired early so they could keep their pensions before they knew something was going to come down the line at them, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of reports made, and all these people, the proof is there. It happened. Okay. Mm-hmm. what does that have to do with, I mean, why are, and I'm going back to what you're saying, the reason I understand the answer. I'm giving you the reason why I was wondering too, though, is like throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, so on and so forth. Makes sense. But what did that have? What would that stuff have to do with Brian Koberger? And it seems kind of ridiculous to me that they're going to go that direction. If you're going to try to make anything stick, it wouldn't be something like that, is all I was saying. But I understand absolutely now what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. So,
no, I mean, but I also totally agree with your point.
mhm.
Like, but I think that that's the problem with the whole complaint is like, where's the causation?
Yes,
So
bingo.
if you're sitting there saying like, okay, well, there's certain facts that aren't in dispute, and there's certain things that individuals have done that aren't in dispute, then let's allege those because those are facts that we can prove. But my problem is, where's the link? Where's the causal link?
Right.
How can you actually prove that that somehow results or attaches a special duty or a duty in general that would give rise to WSU ultimately financially being in a bad spot because they're
Right.
somehow, you know, not going
Right.
to, this lawsuit's not going to go well.
Absolutely.
So, and to add on to that, we all have to remember that WSU is the defendant here. It's not Brian Koberger. I think when a lot of people are talking about this, they want to automatically revert and assume that he is the defendant in this case.
No.
And it's WSU. So part of the reason I believe that they are bringing up all of these issues with the WSU police department or these things that have happened on campus is they are trying to show a pattern that it was reasonably foreseeable that X, Y, and Z might have happened. I do agree 1000% with Sam. I think there's some very serious proximate causation issues that are going on. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to establish that element of foreseeability. And I do think that there are some significant things that were overlooked by the WSU police department. I do think that there's some liability there. I just don't think it ties back to this specific case in question. I mean, I think there's a lot of big screwed up things that have happened with that police department and whether these reports were made or investigations actually happened or, you know, the next steps were taken. The problem I have is they can try to show it's foreseeable. They can try to show that this was a pattern, that WSU was aware that it was an issue and they simply swept it under the rug. There's a big, big problem with the causation analysis with almost every one of their claims.
So in a court hearing, again, based on your experience, something like that, for instance, being that there's no link to this, there's nothing that would put this together with this. Did they just toss stuff like that and say, you know, that, you know, in layman's terms, of course, that has nothing to do with this. We're getting rid of this. Is that how that would work? Or how do they work something like that?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that I'm trying to figure out there was how many claims? I want to say, I mean, we're into like the 200s, right? So they're going to go through each and every one of these claims and it's an issue. And it will get to a point through the discovery process where the plaintiffs, I mean, they have to put their money where their mouth is with each of these allegations. You can't just simply say that he was a stalker without proving any evidence that that actually happened. They might be able to prove some of the claims that they're talking about that may not be directly related to BK. But again, the court's going to have to rule on each of these claims as we go through them.
Well, and you can kind of see where they're trying to go with it. So like if I look at, they're not shy about the connections they're trying to make because there aren't many connections that I truly see. And maybe that's just me, you know, being a jerk. But like when you look at page 40 of the lawsuit in bold, they say that's almost their point to me. And then they are telling you why. So they say, when Koberger arrived at WSU in fall of 2022, the WSU Police Department was consumed by a university investigation into its own longstanding and sordid history of tolerating and, in fact, fostering serious sexual misconduct in its own right. So that's what they're trying to prove. In a way, you're like, well, okay, but what does that have to do with Koberger? Well, the only jump I can make, which is candidly just like not really a jump they made, but it's like they're trying to tie, like, there's all this misconduct. Everyone's been looking away when there's these serious claims or sexual misconduct claims. Maybe the connection then is, and so when Koberger is there and he's receiving all these complaints and making women uncomfortable, they have a long-standing history of knowing this stuff is around, hiding or ignoring it. And don't you see, it's foreseeable that if someone complained, to me, there's too many jumps as an attorney. Like I just go into overdrive because it's like, if someone makes a complaint, it doesn't make it a valid complaint. It means somebody alleged something. So I would need to start there. Is it a valid complaint? Was there truth and veracity to this claim? And then it's okay. And then was this complaint, if it was true, was it investigated correctly? Or did the police department ignore it because that's what they do? I think that's the jump they're trying to make. But even if the police ignored it, if that's what they could do, right? So say they make that jump, I then go back to, okay, but so if you get a complaint for A, that somehow is going to connect to this predatory stalking behavior in another town for different alleged victims that you were, in paragraph 4, predictable and foreseeable. So to me, the causation is just like, you guys are stringing together whatever you can to try to loop it. Where does it attach? Who would have a duty to who? Who's ignoring it? Who should have been investigating this stuff? That was just my read of it.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to show just beyond the WSU police officers, they're trying to, and this is what something Ron and I have and Sam have gotten into in a positive way. We like to throw our analysis at each other, but and Ron, when he gets here, he can go through this more. But his belief of why they're including this is because they're trying to say, hey, there was procedures. There was escalation protocols if a complaint was made, or if there was stalking, or if X, Y, and Z, and the WSU didn't follow their own procedures and protocols. Now, I say it is completely different to make a complaint about, what is it, like a teacher's aide or a professor's aide, like Brian was. He was employed through WSU as that while he was getting his PhD. If you're grading my paper too hard and I think you're a sexist or you're a feminist or whatever I want to blame you as, that is far different than me saying he is committing SA, he is harassing, he is stalking, he is taking this to the next level. Those are completely two different allegations and claims.
So do you think that, and this is just out of my own curiosity, do you think WSU would look into, if there were complaints actually filed, the times and dates of the complaints as compared to Brian Koberger becoming relevant to the world in the news, whether when he's arrested, all that kind of stuff, when he came into the picture, will they look at the complaints that were made as in, if they do happen to be filed after the fact, or if there's nothing filed before that happened?
Oh, yeah.
I would think that'd be quite relevant to this, wouldn't it?
It's super relevant. The other question I have is, we have 13 complaints, and going back to, I'm not saying that the complaints are false,
right,
but we haven't verified them as true either. Right. And so that's but my other question is like, well, how big is this complaint box?
Thank you.
Is everyone getting complaints? And I'm not saying that everyone would get complaints, but I mean, how normal is this? How many complaints are we talking about? And so it does seem like they're trying to kind of isolate it, and, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
But, even if you believe fully that he did it, I still think there's these very serious causation problems. And when I was talking about that page 40, where they bolded, I feel like is where they're trying to make their ultimate point, and then they're putting in the factual support for it. Yeah. And then at the end of that, before the next section where they're making like their new stance and what they think they can prove at trial, they're basically saying, during the same time period that all this WSU police stuff is going on that we can verify, during that same time period, that's when they received the numerous complaints from BK and, all of this, and, they didn't act on it. So they have a history of not acting. We can prove they didn't act, and they didn't act in this case. And so that's why, and since they're attached to WSU, it's WSU's fault, and they should have had a crystal ball and known that this was true.
Right. Oops, sorry. That's interesting. Kristen, do you have anything to add to that before we?
No, I'm with you. There's just one other thing. Do you remember, I haven't read the complaint in a hot minute. I've been focusing on the answer, but there was something in there that they had been taking some sort of like tally within the class of how many people.
The Brian tally, yeah.
Yeah. So one of my immediate questions is, how long has this been going on? Is this done in other classes for other professors? Is
Right.
this normal? What is the procedure if this actually has happened? And what steps have been taken to resolve the issue? And it just seems to me like a lot of issues that they have, they are just it's like verbal diarrhea of everything that they want to say that's ever been happened.
Exactly.
And they're going to have to show that there was a procedure, that there was a policy. I mean, there's going to be so many experts that are involved in this case, you guys. There's going to be behavior experts, risk analysis experts. I mean, this is going to be a very, very, very intensive discovery.
Well,
case.
and part of my thing with this is, and I have this, we can go to whatever you guys want to at
there
any
you go.
point
Okay.
to find it. So, what my biggest thing is with this, okay, is this really drives me insane too. I almost like the Brian tally. I'm glad you brought that part up. Okay. Actually,
And
let me
what was
pull this-
it? What was, how objective was that? Or is it, hey, I feel wronged by this guy, so let me go and get every one of my friends that are in my class to join the tally? That's, I mean, that's my problem. I have a lot of it. Is it so subjective?
To me, that's harassment. Why? What? There's another side to this too that is bothering the hell out of me. Whether or not, and I'm gonna say this to everybody, they know this. I've said this before. Whether or not Brian Koberger is the one that committed this crime or not, okay? I'm not saying that yay or nay. It doesn't matter. That's not what my issue is right now. But this is a form, in my opinion, of harassment. Keeping a tally on a person, you know, in whatever classroom it is, I don't care. This and that, and notating this and harassing and stalking. They were doing the things to him, in my opinion, that they're claiming he was doing to them. How did, you know, all these complaints that they have that they're recorded about this? And again, if you want to look at this from another perspective, Brian Koberger was diagnosed with autism. Okay. A lot of these things that they're complaining about, I have an autistic child myself. I've watched these things come from my own child, a 19-year-old. He's an adult now, but throughout his life, you know, I've watched a lot of the things they're claiming, and it's autistic behavior in some aspects. If you look at it that way, can that be countered? I mean, this isn't a, again, let's clarify this. Brian Koberger is not the defendant in this case, guys. Understand that. But is that a tactic that WSU would go to, you guys think? Or is that not even relevant with this?
I mean, it's possible. I think it's based on discovery. It just goes back to me to this potential prejudice in that if there's a complaint, it's somehow true. And
Right.
It's possible that any complaint is totally true, but to me, it's more akin to like a police incident report. Like you can go into a police station and you can put your story down and they'll take it, and you can get an incident.
Of course, yes, of course, of course.
Doesn't make it true. And so, I mean, I don't know enough about each complaint, but certainly I think that part of the evaluation of the truth of any complaint should be more akin to what you have at a trial, which is testing the credibility of someone. And certainly if friends are doing it, if a group is doing it, it's all at one time, like those should be considerations, because it is strange that you would have a string of people that closely together doing it. And so I think that has to be something to be considered. But I think the more overarching part of the lawsuit is like, well, why would they go after WSU? Well, and does WSU have a duty? I've seen a couple of questions in the comments about that. And I think that Ron and Kristen and I, and Ron, I think maybe says a little more eloquent than I, but I don't know how they would have a duty based on what they were alleging. It's such a far stretch to me, especially when it didn't, the alleged crime did not even occur on campus. It was actually technically somewhere else. These aren't the Idaho 4 students aren't from that same school. It's such a far reach to me that, like, I mean, I don't think it's a meritorious lawsuit. I don't, but the
Right.
silver lining of it for me is when you see the best defense is offense, WSU fighting back, I think, and this is something I think I brought up recently, was the big part to me is when they, in the response, they're saying also that, you know, they admit that BK did it. And I think that is really because he took a plea. And so,
Yeah.
you know, they don't have room. but adding the maybe someone else did it part
Yes.
to it,
Yes.
that to me is creative and an excellent way to fight that lawsuit, because what that
Sure.
does is it, to me, opens up the discovery door. Because now we're not just looking at, like, when you're looking at discovery, you're looking at things that are relevant that could lead to the lawsuit. If you add the component of, but what if you're wrong on the crime, and you somehow get that in, aren't you opening the door to wider discovery that goes back to actually what happened in the criminal case? Otherwise, you would be excluded from that, and you'd be stuck investigating things like the complaint. And so I have no doubt that the complaints are going to get investigated too, but probably more from the plaintiff than the defendant. The defendant's going to do everything they can to get out of it, but I do think it's an interesting counter strategy, and I hope it will be an effective one.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's exactly what I would have done as well. I mean, you have to think, in any civil case, what are you trying to do as a defendant? You're trying to minimize your liability. Okay. You're trying to show that somebody else was comparatively negligent, or they contributed to the injuries. All you're trying to do is to minimize your liability. And so that's what they're trying to do. They have to start with the premise that we don't dispute that he did these things, right? There has been a conviction. It has been adjudicated. The plea deal, that is an order. And you're just coming out and you're saying, hey, we're going to say that this is exactly what the adjudication has said. So we're going to start from there. But they are simultaneously screaming from the rooftops that they believe that there was other perpetrators or attackers or an entity that may or may not have been involved. And so they're screaming that. And what is the best way? What is the easiest way for WSU to prevail is that by showing that obviously BK didn't do this. Therefore, even if there was a duty, there was no duty that was breached because he wasn't involved. And that's the interesting point. And case law has differed over the years. I was doing some research on it. It used to be that the common theme within the court system was that universities didn't have beyond a reasonable duty to protect their students. But I will say there are some cases in some courts that are coming out, and they are finding that there might have been a duty under a unique situation, but you still have to go through that analysis. And generally the theme is that a duty does not exist when there's an off-campus incident with little control of the university. Okay, this took place at a completely different other college. That it was unforeseeable and it was a sudden criminal act. Okay, that it's an adult set. It was adult students in a settings where the school lacks custodial control. Those are all very, very big reasons that even if the court found that there was a general duty or potentially even a special duty, I think those are going to be the biggest targets they're going to come at. And I know there was a couple messages in the chat with respect to the WSU Police Department. And I actually brought this up with Ron. So the WSU University there's a police department within the WSU. So technically those police officers are employees of WSU. So if they're trying to show a pattern that WSU Police Department on campus as an entity that is employed by the university, if they were overlooking things or they had a pattern of not actually doing an investigation, if a report was made of SA or harassment or stalking, that's what they're trying to do. That's the causal connection there. They are employed by that university.
Of course.
And why wouldn't anybody sue? Trust me, Sam and I say it all the time. Why aren't we suing, Moscow PD?
That's what I said.
Brian was never a student at University of Idaho. So it could be a completely separate case.
Which in turn makes me want to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Okay, which in turn makes me want to ask this question again. I've been saying this day after day after day. Anytime I talk about this, I keep saying this. So could it be brought to the table as part of a defense? If this is true and Brian did this because of this, this, and this, and this, why didn't he attack people in Washington State University? Why didn't he go after those students? Why didn't he come back at those students that were problems for him, so on and so forth? All that, because I think that is part of the big picture in that aspect. If Brian was this person, he had these attributes or these traits, so on and so forth, why did he not come after any of our students here he went to another state, a completely different university that he didn't have anything to do with, and did this there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the answer is you're right, and it's both. Because on the one hand, they're saying, well, you have a duty, and I think just all of us from a common sense perspective are like, what?
Yeah, right.
That's no way that it can attach. But they're saying, on the one hand, you have a duty, and then on the other hand, you failed that duty, breached that duty, and also we got to show that it was foreseeable. And so even if they say, okay, you've done all the discovery, there's nothing that you could put out there that says it was anything other than the current plea deal conviction for PK. Still, I think you have a lawsuit that should be dismissed, because I don't know how you make those connections, to your point. Sure. I mean, predictable and predatory behavior. It would be predictable that he would, no evidence that he stalked these students, but that he would go to these students in a different state, and that would work. And yeah, there's just so much there. But I think that when you're on the defense, you also want to explore the other avenues. And what's going to put the pressure on is, these attorneys, I'm assuming they've been on these YouTubes. They know what people are saying about the Idaho 4. They know that the case is shaky. They probably talked to Ann Taylor. They know there's some holes in it. And so if there's another way out, because maybe it wasn't him altogether, or maybe it was him and these other people, and they could show what duty then? How can you prove that WSU caused it? I think they're going to have a problem being successful in this lawsuit, period.
Agreed.
I don't think it makes sense. And then you go, well, why are they suing WSU? And I think that's Kristen's point, is because he was technically working there, and they said he pays for housing. So that's where they're trying to grab onto that duty that maybe Idaho in their minds didn't have. I don't know that WSU had it either, though. So it's just kind of a circle of confusion, but I don't think anyone should sleep on the fact that just because they put it in the complaint doesn't mean they can prove those facts or those causal connections. And they're going to have to do that. And they've bitten off quite a bit right now. But why would you sue WSU? Well, I'm assuming that other people that you may want to sue aren't going to produce the type of damages or economic financial relief.
Sure.
And I don't know why, but that would just be one reason that somebody would go after a big old university, is because they have deep pockets.
100%.
Yeah, and I don't think it was too wild that they asked for that number. I mean, people asked for the most outrageous award for damages as possible, but they go after the deepest pockets. But what I actually look forward to seeing in this lawsuit is, I don't think there's going to be a lot of protections within the community or for entities or people that we were seeing in Moscow, right? Moscow. Sorry. I know people love to correct us. It's Moscow.
I get corrected all the time. I get it.
But with here, I don't think that WSU is going to have a lot of those same protections. And so I think that the discovery is going to be a lot more broad in this case. It's going to be a lot more open. I think there's going to be depositions of so many people. I think that, for instance, will Steve G be deposed? I think so.
Will Brian Koberger be deposed?
We actually talked a lot about this. My position is, I think he absolutely could be. And he doesn't have the Fifth Amendment right to fall back on, because it is not a criminal case, right? Yep. And that case has already technically been resolved.
Sure.
But you bet your butt he's someone that I think I would want to depose if it was my case.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Especially within the complaint side to this, I would think part of that and many other things. I mean, and of course, this has been taken to a federal level. We all know that at this point. My question is, and so you guys probably know a lot more than I think a lot of people are questioning, are we going to see any of this? Is this ever going to be brought to public eyes? And I don't believe it is, but
we won't, at least for the litigation, for anyone that followed the Diddy case, they usually use a sketch artist and you get to see kind of the drawings. I don't know about the audio. I can't recall. Was that available through the Diddy case? Were we allowed to listen to the
I don't even remember. I know that
I don't either.
I kind of thought it would be like the Delphi case was, where they just didn't allow any of that to happen, and then they would have their daily hearing or the trial days and so on and so forth, and then people would come running out after the fact, and they would, this is what happened, this is how this happened, blah blah blah. That's kind of what I expect with this.
It'll be similar. In the Delphi, that was the state court, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
so the court has the discretion to make those decisions. I think they're frowned upon, especially with how everything is so public now with respect to social media. But federal, there are different rules. I don't think cameras or media is allowed in the courtroom, but don't quote me on that. And I want everyone to remember, you can sue for anything.
Right.
And as the weeks go on, I review so many cases, and I try to find interesting ones that may grab my attention. I read one the other day that a child, or now adult, was suing their parent, her parents, because she never wanted to be born.
Yes.
And so because she was born, she was suing her parents because she didn't ask to be born. Now, this just shows you what our legal system has come to. Okay.
Right.
It's not like the McDonald's case where somebody was actually spilt scalding hot coffee that was clearly not with the confines of the procedure and the protocols for coffee, and somebody was burned horribly bad. That to me is a legitimate injury, by McDonald's. But are we now suing? Now we're allowing kids who then turn into adults to sue their parents because they're unhappy with their life and therefore they never wanted to be born. So now we're suing our parents. I mean, that's literally what our system has come to.
And it's crazy, Kristen. There's so much of this I've seen, because I read up on all this kind of stuff. This is, I'm a nerd. This is all I think about and look at. There's folks that are suing. There's a 16-year-old girl that's suing both her parents. They're divorced, but she's suing them separately, but at the same time, because she does not like the name that they gave her when she was born. Are you kidding me? And this is allowed to happen, is what's killing me. Like, what judges? I can't imagine. If I was a judge, I'd be like, are you serious? You need to spank
what the remedy is there. She can go change it. As soon as she's an adult, she can go change it.
Right.
It's honestly quite disgusting of how it's gotten to the point that you can sue for anything. And we have the Sleuther 75 with your question. We actually talked quite a bit about this at the very beginning, but Sam, we can just give a quick rundown. So the 12B6 motion in federal court, we were discussing that in our professional opinion, mine's a little bit different than Sam's, and Ron's is a little bit different than both of ours. There is no per se consequence to filing that right from the beginning, unless there's not a very high probability that the motion is going to be granted. And then potentially you have told the other side exactly what their defects are, exactly how you're going to attack their case. You could potentially give them the ability to go cure or fix what their problems are with respect to the complaint. You might be adding on 3-6+ months because now you're dealing with the housekeeping procedural issue rather than getting right to the meat and potatoes of the discovery. And C, if it really doesn't have a chance at prevailing, do you really want to piss off the court or the judge for wasting their time? That's mine. I'll throw it to Sam for her summary.
Yeah, I mean, with a 12B6 motion, my understanding, and again, I don't practice in federal court at all, but a 12B6 motion, essentially, you're not dismissing it because the facts aren't true. So when I talk about like, oh, it's foreseeable, like that is a fact that needs to be tried at court. They're saying, did they allege enough in a complaint to meet the legal standard of what they're suing for? So in my mind, they probably should have done that. I don't really see why they shouldn't. Yeah, there's room for an amended complaint, but how much better can your complaint get if it is trash to begin with?
Right.
I don't know.
That's the way to put it.
It's more of like a procedural throwout. And so if you can get to the procedural throwout, then great. It can be dismissed without prejudice, which means you could refile it again. There could be leave to amend, which is what Kristen keeps proposing. And I think that's totally viable, that is a legitimate reason why they chose not to do it. It's hard to kind of get into the mind of lawyers filing their responses and things like that, and what specific strategy they're going. I can tell you that Kristen and I spend so much time on our cases strategizing that it would make everyone else sick. You don't always know where we're going, and sometimes that's intentional. And so I don't know that we'll ever really know why And again, without we're not obviously practicing in Idaho or at the federal level, but just when you're looking at kind of someone and their defenses to a lawsuit, even if it delayed it, you would think that they would maybe want to try each options, because boy, oh boy, would it be a lot easier if they did dismiss it and they couldn't refile something in a way that allowed the lawsuit to proceed.
But
Wow.
Sam, unless they dismissed it with prejudice, they could simply refile it again, correct? That's my understanding.
Yeah. And I think that's where you get into the prayer of relief for fees, is like you keep filing these motions and they don't meet the legal standard. So pay us all of our fancy lawyers that worked around the clock to do it. But yeah, and that's why I think your thought on it could very well be exactly what's going on. And it could be that they're saying, hey, look, we don't want to mess around with this. We don't want to cause more delay. And it's a 126-page complaint. So they've alleged enough factual support. We disagree that they can prove those facts at trial. And hey, let's get to going. You guys think you're going to be sitting on the top of a hill. You're not. Let's get to discovery. Let's look at the holes in your case. You want to talk about the duty that attaches to our police officers? Well, let's talk about the crime.
Yeah.
Right. And so who knows?
And what's been hidden for years? Let's do that. Let's get.
Is there any truth to this, Kristen, that you know of?
I don't think BK can even be called. No, that's well. Let me rephrase that. I don't know 100%, but you have to think every criminal. Well, and actually, because this is a civil case, it actually might be different. We'll have to ask Ron, but I know in your criminal case, they transport you to and from the prison to the courthouse and back. I actually know it's a very, very good question. We'll have to ask that to Ron when he gets here. I don't know that you actually have a right to attend a civil hearing. That's a great question. Whoever asked that, that's a really good one. Sam,
Right.
do you know?
That was Tomboy that asked that one.
Yeah, I immediately wanted to say, no, you can't find your own transportation when you're in prison. But this is a civil case. It's completely different.
That's why I was curious.
Yeah, we'll have to do some research on that.
Obviously, as a criminal case, you're subpoenaed to court. You go, they make you go, they transport you, all that fun stuff. But in a civil situation, I was curious if that was true or not. That's why. So that was a good question.
Some of it probably depends, and this is just me speculating, but some of it I think would depend on whether or not he was subpoenaed there.
That's what I was just going to say too.
If court order for him to be there, then they may arrange some transportation. We've dealt with transportation in family law cases from individuals who are incarcerated to allow them an opportunity to participate. So there's probably some analysis that goes into whether it's discretionary or mandatory and what other potential provisions are in place for it. There's definitely a procedure to do it. It's just whether or not he would be allowed to do it just to do it. I don't know. I mean, if it was me and I was sitting in jail and I could just find a couple bucks to go to a courthouse, I probably would.
And let me reiterate.
I think they probably let him do it over Zoom too. I know that I've seen several cases where they have let the inmates do it, from the courthouse over a similar platform like this, to where he still gets to participate, but they don't necessarily have to have him in the courtroom.
Sure.
But the $1 million question is, does he want to be heard?
That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? I don't know. I'm not in his mind, but yeah, I do think there is a difference. Two things in the comments. One, Ron is not related to Bethany.
That's why I was just
it's not a hard no, but you guys can all give him a hard time about it.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that this is my fault, everybody, and some people are just now coming in, so they didn't hear me in the beginning. Ron Funk is an appellate attorney that works with the custody queens. He specializes in appellate stuff, folks, just so you understand. His name is spelled Funk. That was my fault. I threw the E on there I was mindlessly typing because I'm so used to typing Bethany Funk's name. I think it just came through. There is no relation. There is zero relation between the two of them. I feel so bad that I did that.
We shouldn't feel bad. In fact, we should ask him the second he gets on. Are you?
How many times has he been asked that question? How many times?
They go on April Fools. You need to post something that is aligned with this, and so we can give them a hard time. I think one of the first episodes Ron did with us, we were going through the Bethany Funk I'm not even going to call it an interrogation, but the interviews. And we were going to title it Funk versus Funk. But yeah, feel free to give him a hard time because we just like watching him squirm a little bit. So when Ron first started with us, I want to say he's been here like 12 plus years, give or take, closer to getting in that 15. I mean, Sam's been with me almost equally as long.
Yeah.
But
he's about
Ron,
8 to 10.
Yeah, 8 to 10. So and he before that he worked obviously some other very, very big law firms, but he's transitioned to the point of his career because he's got that dual certification that now he's at the point of his career where his specialty and what his passion is truly the appellate arena. And that's pretty much what he's transitioned to doing full time now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I might do it just because you guys said it, but I don't want to. He's never been here with me before. He doesn't know my sense of humor. None of that.
Honestly, he breeds snakes for fun with his wife and and then sells them and makes videos. So Ron is pretty quirky.
That is wild.
I mean, if you're gonna rep his business, Kristen, you got to give him a shout out. Funky.
What's the name of his snakes again? Oh, Funky. Oh yeah. So the name of his
exotics.
It's called Funky Town Exotic. So if anyone is looking for a snake, feel free to check it out.
Ron's the guy. In fact, I believe it or not, was in South Carolina and there was a snake inside, and I'm from the West Coast. We're lame out here. There's a couple of cactus and we cry when it rains. And I'm out there, so I'm in over my head, and there was a snake in the house. There's a black snake, so I immediately jumped to, this is a black mamba, and I'm gonna die. And I called Ron, and Ron's like, "That's a rat snake, dude. You're good. You're fine. No worries."
That is crazy to me. That's a hobby to somebody. That's not. I mean, I've seen beekeeping. I guess everybody has to do something. You know what I mean? I play with toys. That's my hobby. I collect toys. So,
snakes,
I guess I get it, but snakes? No.
Yeah, that's probably. I'm only scared of very few things, and it's snakes and rat tails. And don't ask me why it's the rat tail and not necessarily the rat. But that tail freaks me the hell out.
Yeah, but at least
they're not dolls. My people do this to me on purpose. They're not dolls. They are action figures. I don't play with dolls. They're action figures, you guys. They do this to me. So, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, I have a deathly horrifying fear of spiders. Snakes don't bother me as much because, I live in an area where I'm infested with them out here. But the spider thing, I can't handle at all. I can't handle spiders.
I'm sure we have other snakes in California, but mostly it's rattlesnakes, and I mean, you can hear those things. So
yes, yeah. We have riverbed rattlers here. They're not as bad as what you guys would have. We have black snakes, we have rat snakes, we have most of what we have are garter snakes. And
snakes.
Sometimes though, I got called to a scene one time where somebody got bit by a python, and I'm thinking like, why, where did you get a python? We don't have pythons, you know what I mean? And somebody had a pet that got loose, and it was big too. No.
Yikes.
I was
good.
So sad he's missed this whole discussion. He's stuck in court.
He actually just texted me right now 5 minutes ago saying that the attorneys are going on and on forever. So he said he should be on. But Jenny, we saw your post or your comment. Yeah. Thank you so much. We absolutely adore you as well, and we love the other two. There you go.
Thank you, Jenny. We appreciate that. It says this has to be my favorite lineup. We just need Lee and Ron. XOXO. Love all of you, my favorites. Thank you, Jenny. We love you too.
There are so many good creators that we watch on YouTube, and I spend hours trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, how do you get this point across without coming off,
sure, yeah,
a certain way. And a lot of times I'll even watch the creators that I don't agree with that might be on the more of the mainstream media side, because I think that's how you learn and you figure things out. I've learned not to subscribe to them because then other people can see that I subscribe and then they comment. But I'll go watch, Nancy Grace. Actually, I can't even listen to her voice for more than like 3 minutes now. But she said something yesterday, and I wrote it down on a paper at home that was just so crazy. And it had to do with the Idaho case. It was something about she had Howard Bloom on, and she basically was like, how dare you for coming out after you were such a profound author in this best-selling book? How dare you all of a sudden switch sides and now make everyone to believe that it was someone else? And I'm watching this and I'm like, you can't believe the crap that's coming out of your mouth. Like, that's how bad it is.
Thank
because
you. Thank you.
I look at it going, I have a hard time with people looking at this case and not saying that it was very likely that at least 2 or 3 more people were involved in this.
Right. And
but that's how we learn.
It's funny that you brought her up. And I'm going to tell you a little story. I call her nasty disgrace, first of all, because she is. She absolutely is. She's one of the nastiest people I've ever seen.
It's bad. Every
time she has somebody on, she makes it about herself. And she's even done it with the Gonzalves. And she did an interview with Stephen Christie not too long ago. And I reacted to it because that's all I can do is react to her. I can't handle her voice, her face, anything she does. It makes me want to like go grab a punching bag and beat the hell out of it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
She makes this whole thing and she puts on these fake tears and gets all super emotional and says, I'm going to say this. And she lowers her voice the very best way I possibly can, Stephen Christie. But all this blood and gore all over, and I was like, what the hell are you doing?
So unneeded. It's as she collects a paycheck doing it. It's
and then they're sitting there talking. That's what killed me, you two. Those two are sitting there talking and complaining about people, which I understand, you know, their loss is horrific, that are making money on the backs of the loss of their child. And I looked at my other screen and I said, but you're sitting here with this woman that nets $25 million a year doing exactly what you just said, but you're okay with her.
And she has been for 3 years.
100%. Everybody they talk to is making insane amounts of money. We don't make anything out here. You guys know this, okay? It's not even anything worth blinking at. It's a joke. So, but you're talking about everybody out here doing this. The people that are actually out here, honest to God and truly, from my heart and soul, trying to find truth so that your child actually gets real justice for what happened to her. But that's okay.
And then it doesn't happen again.
Right. It blows my mind. I'm sorry. I'm still being so melodramatic right now, but it just, these things they kill me these days with this. She's one of the worst. Her and Bianca
terrible. It's terrible. I can't. I think Angelique's the other one. But if you can't, you should always be able to listen to what everyone has to say. Yes, there are sometimes I want to literally throw my phone when I read some stuff or some comments, and it's like, okay, you can't even be a human because that was so not credible. But you have to be able to listen to, and then you agree to disagree. And I think that anyone that can't do that, especially if you have a big, huge platform like that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the legal system, is to be able to analyze both sides, each piece of evidence, and then come to your own conclusions.
Yes.
But what I found to be interesting with that interview is Steve does, he thinks that Thompson, I think he's even alluded to the fact that he's got some, serious health issues or memory loss that's resulted to the conclusion of this case. He throws anybody in that case under the bus. The investigation sucked. The ISP, FBI, nobody knew what they were doing. They didn't know their right arm from their left arm.
Right.
But somehow they 100% magically got the conclusion right, when everything leading up to the conclusion was piss poor and neglectful. I mean, there's 1,000 words. And what I think is interesting with this WSU case is I think that he's talked a lot to the media. He's talked a lot through statements. There are so many inconsistencies in the statements given. I think it's absolutely going to come out in this WSU case.
And that's what I'm hoping for. And that's what I think. I was going to ask you that question too. We're going to end up backtracking when Ron gets here. So I'm just kind of talking around some other things until he gets here too. Do you guys both think, and you're just in your opinion, I'm sure that you have no clue, and like none of us do, but do you think honestly that Steve Gonzalves truly and honestly believes in this, what he's put out with this lawsuit? Honestly, just opinion wise.
What
if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. I understand that.
No. I mean, no. I'm happy to. I'm an open book. I'm wrong all the time. My thing is, like, I think that there's certain people out there that are, for whatever reason, committed to a particular narrative. And what concerns me with that is we've even just us all online, we've learned so much with all the new information out that when you don't see any question towards the possibility that your initial conclusion, which was based on different facts, may need to change, and it doesn't change no matter what is told to you, that to me is problematic because you're not willing to consider new stuff. Now, I don't know, him in particular, what is going on in his mind. I just think it is, to me, really important to continue to reevaluate based on new facts and new things coming out. So then, do I think that do I think that it would be natural for anyone to assume that he's falling asleep at night thinking this was all WSU's fault? It was definitely their fault and they had a duty, and oh, those cops with the sexual misconduct. No, that's, of course, an attorney had to talk to him about the legal elements of a crime and the potential financial aspect that he could get with it. And maybe he's going along with it. Maybe he's going along with it because that has a financial aspect to it. Maybe he truly believes it because there's certain people in his life that he's going to trust as much as he could possibly trust, and he's going to ignore everything else. I don't know, because I'm not in his mind. But it is very problematic, and the same thing's true with Nancy. It's very problematic for me when you're committed to a bit to such an extent that the only thing you can do to people that don't agree with you is to do like the canned insult of like, you're making money when everyone's making money off this of different degrees, or you're doing this for this. And so it's like, your insult, I need your insult to be more specific. I need you to say there's a particular creator online that has changed or modified a video, and this has caused terrible public misinformation. Now you have my attention. Now I want to know what happened. Now I want to analyze it. But if it's just in general, if you don't agree with what we agree, we're going to bully you into believing that, or we're going to explain to everyone else that you're crazy and you all are crazy. And we're going to say something that makes us seem very like to lack empathy, like just let the families have peace. When I think for all of us, that's, I'm happy to have my feelings hurt, but that's not the intention of any of us that I know. Right. And so, or that we work with. So it's, free speech, say what you want about us. I think the whole thing is problematic. Just when people don't change their opinion at all with new facts, that's like red flags. And then they're all saying the exact same thing.
Just like when he said a month ago that they were all still sleeping at the time of the attack. I mean, that's a perfect example of what you're saying there, Sam. It's a perfect example. He was on, was it the Reporter Room?
All of it. Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks ago.
Chris McDonough, right.
And he was laying it down again. I mean, these were 4 college students attacked in the middle of the night in their sleep. And that's where is exactly what Sam's saying is like, the evidence doesn't support that. So if you're not modifying your storyline or thinking outside the box that maybe it didn't go exactly as the way we were told 3 years ago, then you're not evolving with respect to the facts and the evidence.
Exactly. And it should be
more credibility.
I agree with you. There should be some form of accountability that should go along with that. In my opinion, I mean, I know this sounds dumb and childish. It should be illegal to be able to, there's so many people that are still out here, like you just said. They all were killed in their sleep. Brian Koberger went to his parents' house and cleaned his car with bleach. He took the garbage next door and put it in his neighbor's garbage. This, all these things are lies that have been proven. We've talked about this before multiple times by the prosecutors, the lead investigators, everybody involved in this case, that none of these things are true. And they're still being processed day after day after day as a true fact in this case. And they're not.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's also something to be said about the strategy of who you let allow you to publicly ask questions and what topics you're comfortable speaking on. Because even if you just go back to what Kristen was saying about they're all in their sleep, right? Well, if they're all in their sleep, then, I mean, can someone get up there and say, well, so
they weren't.
What's going on with DM saying Kaylee's crying? So how are those two things true? So can we just ask that question? And what's your response? And if your response to that is what I would assume it would be, that they're all sleeping. It's like, no, you're not answering. You're not being responsive to it, and you're not critically thinking about it. And that's your own prerogative. You don't need to critically think about it, but then you can't then ask me to not weigh your total credibility when there's
good point
out there.
Yes, thank you for saying that too, because what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. You should be able to do the exact same thing. And there should be, I mean, you know, we're free will, all that stuff, but there should be a forced response to something like that, in my opinion, because it's only fair, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're not going to respond, you're not going to respond. But then you can't then come and say, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you're lacking the credibility. Then when you're turning around saying everyone out here is out for the wrong thing, and we shouldn't be going through the details, and we shouldn't be questioning things, and we should. And I said this from the beginning: make it make sense to me.
Thank you.
Reconcile it, right? That's like part of our cross-examination. Like, I say this, you say that. No. Let me tell you why it's right. Okay, let me know. Tell me where I'm wrong, because I would like to believe, and I know that I have formulated my opinions, but I would like to believe that I'm still open to understanding a different avenue. But like, explain it to me.
Yes, good point, Sam. Very good point. I really appreciate that too. Real quick, let me read.
There was one comment, I think it was Twizzlestick, and she commented that sometimes you look dumb when you say what you want. But to me, you have so much more credibility when you are evolving with the evidence. And you're saying, to me, I would have a lot more respect if there was some sort of interview done going, I know this is what we were told. We weren't given all of the information. Maybe we were brainwashed to some extent that this was the storyline and they're pounding it into us. But clearly, the autopsies, the facts, the pictures don't support that 4 kids were sleeping at the time of the attacks. It just doesn't.
Right.
And so, you know, while people may think it makes them look dumb, I think to most professionals, it actually gives them more credibility.
That's a good point. Good point. Real quick here, Moto Man. Thank you, by the way, brother, for this. As always, appreciate the super chat. Is there a chance that this lawsuit is a trap for Brian? Wasn't one of the stipulations of the plea deal that if the case was to be reopened, that the death penalty would be back on the table, hence the G's would get what they wanted all along? I do have questions because I don't think that's true. Thank you again, Moto Man. Ladies, any
you know, your guess is honestly as good as mine, and Ron might be better to answer this question, but just my initial thoughts on it is, you know, what does it mean to be reopened? Are we talking about the civil suit? Because I don't think that anything can really happen right now as it stands from, you know, obviously third parties suing a university. So I don't know that that would reopen it. When it comes back to him already taking that plea, and if there's additional evidence and he's now quote unquote reopening the case for whatever reason, would that somehow violate his plea agreement or put it all back on the table? I think that that's a perfect question for Ron on whether or not that would be. And I think part of the answer to that would be what legal remedy is being pursued. So I don't know what they're do you have total exculpatory evidence that you're bringing forward to try to get exonerated? Is there some other type of motion? I know that he's lapsed some of the things that he could have done from the in the appellate realm, as far as Ron has told us. So I like the question, but I think maybe Ron's better to answer that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. We will make sure we go back to that.
Yeah, save that one for Ron. And I'd have to go back and look at the plea deal as well. And I don't know that the death penalty was one of the. I don't know that it would go automatically to that.
I was told, because I had asked a question about the plea deal at one point, and I could have been told something wrong, that once the death penalty has been removed from the situation, they can't put it back. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just how it was explained to me.
Yeah, we'll look into that. If I'm sure Ron knows the answer, but I also think if the plea deal was set aside because one side did not fulfill all of their terms of the plea agreement, is my understanding, it goes back to like the litigation phase. You know, and it goes from there. But we'll have to revisit that with Ron. But I would have a really hard time believing that you automatically would go back to the.
I don't. Yeah, the way it was explained to me was that once death penalty is removed from the table, it's just done. You can't go back to it unless there's a weird set of circumstances that would retract the entire thing, and you go back to where you were at and reset, basically, which still doesn't make sense to me. So either way, I definitely want to know that one. So we'll definitely say that for him too.
But to add on this, Dago, so I don't think the prosecution wants that plea deal to fall apart or to be set aside, because when that agreement was executed, we didn't know all of this stuff. The public didn't have access to all of this stuff. We didn't have most of the pictures. We didn't have audio. We didn't have video. So I don't think the prosecution is going to, at least at this point, make any claims that that plea agreement should be set aside, because it would then go back to the trial court stage. And I think that would be very problematic for them.
Bill would have a stroke on that one, I think. I don't think he could.
He would take an early retirement, is my guess.
Yep, bingo. That's exactly. I think anybody attached at that point to the case would disappear. That's truly what I think would happen at that point from the prosecution side, including even the judge, in my opinion. I don't think he would. I don't know if it would go back to the same judge, but I think he would just somehow take retirement.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would say enough is enough. I've been drugged through the mud.
100%. I don't see that ever happening. Let me see. I'm checking here to see if there's any more things we can question-wise we can get to. Oh, I did have a question for you too. I was going to ask, and I almost forgot it again as we're waiting. I'm sure you guys have seen and heard that Olivia Stevenson, Kaylee's older sister, had gone through legislation and had a law passed. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that, because I know what I feel on it, and I'll tell you.
She was supporting the law, correct? Right? Like she was. Was it actually passed? It was my understanding.
My understanding for it. I think my understanding. I was told that it was passed. That you can no longer. This is only in Idaho, mind you, folks. That you cannot look at crime scene photos that have pictures of bodies in them. That's how I was explained to me. How I understood what I read.
I mean,
I was told it passed.
It was the opposite. I was under the understanding she was going to advocate for it, hoping that it would be passed. But,
okay, so maybe I was given wrong information then. Okay,
but hold on, but it's okay. What I have comments on that too. What do you think about it, Dago?
I think it's scary for one. Okay, let me move this for right. I'll come back to you, Moto Man. I promise.
Yeah, those are perfect Ron questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very scary, because I think this could set precedents. If it's passed, that one thing after another is going to follow this, okay? And all of these things are going to come out, and everything that we have rights to at this point are going to disappear. And here's my point with this. I'm not saying that. I'm not complaining about it because I'm a YouTuber or an influencer or whatever anybody wants to call us out here, but we have the right to look at a criminal case and ask questions, okay? And we should have that right as the people to be able to look into something if we're not 100% comfortable, because honestly, and you two both know this, nothing is cut and dry, black and white anymore. There's just so many things attached to these cases anymore. We want to see. We want to know. We have the right as a people, in my opinion, to know. And I'm not saying that I'm some weirdo that wants to look at pictures of bodies, dead bodies, and so on and so forth. That's not even the point. It's the fact and the principle behind it that if one thing goes through like this, then number 2 comes, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, until we have absolutely no rights to look into these things. And then where are we sitting? We're just supposed to accept their word and say, okay, just trust me, bro. That's their philosophy.
Oh God, just trust me.
You know what I mean? And I'm not okay with that, you guys. I'm not okay with that at all. So that's what I'm worried about.
That phrase actually makes me cringe, to be honest.
It does.
Just trust me, because that usually is code for don't ask questions and just keep moving forward.
Yes,
that's and I think that people, when people say they have asked one of the three of us, would you like to see crime scene photos? And I think that depends. We're all different. Me, I have pretty thick skin and a strong stomach, but I think it's important to be able to see pictures, because I think it fully tells the story, and a lot of it is evidence. How far was this room for this room? Where exactly? We all know that there was blood spatter, but where was it? And so do I want to go look at pictures of Xana attacked 60 times? No, not necessarily at all, but all of it tells a story, and it either supports an allegation or it doesn't support an allegation. So I think I think there are some people that want to be creepy and see some of these, crime scene photos and do, maybe sell it on the 4chan. I don't know. But most of us, it tells a story. Yes. And so I don't think it's creepy that someone, potentially would want to see those pictures.
If we're given a statement in a report that this person was found this way, with their leg bent this direction. Okay, like the Delphi photographs. Okay, I don't want to look at those because I want to look at them. I want to look at those to see how the bodies were positioned based on the statement that they made in the report in the affidavit about what the crime scene looked at. That's all I want to see. I want to see how the sticks were positioned. Okay, so on and so forth, to see if this lines up with what they've told us. That's the only reason why I want to look at these things. You take that away, why do I have to just sit here and believe what you're telling me?
Right.
I don't think that's right. So I'm sorry. I stepped over on top of you, Sam. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree. I think that, it's like a Freedom of Information Act, access to public records. Those are really important rights to us. And I think critically, to your point, I don't think that people, I mean, some people may be like the outliers, but people aren't typically looking at a picture of a crime scene just to do it. In this case, there's a reason to do it because we have a good faith belief that what has been presented to us is not in line with what actually happened. And the photos are actual pieces of evidence. They're not just things to look through. They're things that would have been relied on quite heavily by both sides if the case proceeded to trial. It's one of the best evidences that you can use.
It's part of full transparency. Yes.
Right. To demonstrate what happened and whether or not your theory makes sense. And I think further to that point, that although this was a heavily questioned case pre getting disseminated with all of this additional information, and there was a lot of question marks, I think some of the photographs have painted said story. Definitely. And have shown maybe when you're then going back and looking at some of the interviews, how wild they now seem. They seemed off before and now they seem totally wild, right? And so it is important to have all of the information at a trial. It would be important to do it. So I think that, obviously the right to have that information is important and should be guarded.
Absolutely. And that, like I said, it brings to full transparency, which is all about what this is supposed to be, folks. Absolute.
It eliminates speculation.
Thank you.
And that's a big problem with this case and many other cases. But I want you to think, how many positions have we heard that Ethan was in over the last 2 years? Okay. Right. I remember thoroughly, I think I was driving to Las Vegas for a soccer tournament, and Ashley had breaking news, Banfield, that Ethan was in the doorway as he saw the attacker. And it's like, and I think that was the only time I'd ever heard her admit that it was in direct conflict or contradiction with what the actual rest of the mainstream media was saying. Yeah. And I remember like, well, she actually somewhat admitted that doesn't make sense. Or the other, just recently in the document drop, we saw evidence that he was allegedly laying on his right arm. And I think Jules with True Crime actually tried to show all these different poses potentially of how that could have looked. But instead of us speculating exactly what that looked, just show us the picture. We don't need to see, anything beyond, but how was he laying? Was it completely limiting that right arm from being able to defend himself in any way, shape, or form? Or is it, like this, and I could have just moved my arm? That's what happened. So I think the pictures, they tell a story way beyond words.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And that's well, okay. Perfect example for this entire thing is when the photographs came out and we all saw the photographs of Xana's bedroom. Multiple people, and I'm saying multiple upon multiple people, have come forth now and said, wait a minute. And this is on the Gilter side of the train tracks. Okay. Hold on, including Howard Bloom. That's where all this craziness has come from. There's no way, for whatever reason, people have looked at the photographs of Xana's bedroom and said, there's no way one person did this. Okay.
1,000%.
That right there is the reason why I think we need to be able to look at this and go, now do you see why we're saying what we're saying? Now do you see why we're throwing red flags up all over the place? Steve, look at this photograph and get the same thoughts that we have and see what we're seeing. Sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
No, and that's why as attorneys, photographs are so important to our evidence. And yes, you have to be careful now with AI. And yes, are there deep fakes? And it's so much harder to bring into evidence in cases. But Sam and I do a ton of domestic violence. We are huge advocates for domestic violence victims. We've literally dedicated the vast majority of our careers respect to domestic
violence, sure.
Domestic violence, and how you know, how can we prevent it or somewhat come up with a parenting plan that protects the children and the you know, the victim? But we use pictures all the time. And how many times have we heard that Ethan or Xana's room, it was ransacked? I think that was a word. Or there was some cubbies or drawers that were dumped out. No, if you saw that room, it was very clear that potentially something was being searched for.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you could make that assumption. And also with the amount of red stuff and kind of the areas, it is very easy to visualize Xana fighting for her life in that room.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes,
and I don't think you can do that any other way through written reports or DM telling a story. I just don't think you can really visualize it until you see it.
And considering like DM made some of the statements she did that came to be untruthful, going into these photographs and looking at them saying, okay, there's the proof that we needed to see to prove that this was not true, or that was
you're not telling the truth.
Thank you. And real quick, Twiz just says, I think and I agree fully with him. He's been hardcore on this case from the beginning. He's been to many hearings, so on and so forth as well, and 100% is here to support the truth with this too. I think we need all of the evidence, not for Brian or the victims actually, but because we need to be able to hold law enforcement accountable for the things that they have done. And I fully
1000% Twizzle stick.
Thanks, Twiz.
And the FBI and ISP and the prosecution. I think everybody needs to be held to the same accountability.
Yes, ma'am. I fully agree with you. So I guess I was wrong. It was that she's advocating for that law to be passed. So it's not that it was. Thank the Lord. And that's my thoughts are on that. Is that I feel like.
And do you think Sam and Dago? Do you think that the reason? I think she was there for a couple of reasons, advocating for that legislature to pass. But I think a part of it might be because there was such mixed feelings from all of the victims' parents. If there's legislation and here's the rule, you can't release it no matter what, then we don't have to worry about having 4 different parents being the victims, and we all kind of have to be on an agreement with this if we don't want it to get out. Sam, what do you like?
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that I should have let Sam go first. I'm sorry.
No.
I think that's probably because I think somebody else in here, I think it was Nothing Half-Assed, had said, what if 2 parents agree with this and 2 down, or whatever it is. I think that's probably why that she's pushing, is that, if that's what your question was. If I misheard it, I'm sorry. But I agree that I think that's split. I definitely think there's splits on this.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's probably why she's doing what she's doing in that aspect. And here we go. Oh, it looks like
we have Ron. He texted me and said he would be on.
I think, Bethany's cousin Ron is here. I think that's correct, Ron? You're Bethany's cousin?
Yeah.
No.
It's Bethany's. It's Bethany's dad's brother's cousin.
By the way, they put me up to that. I knew this already, but they put me up to that because they love it so much.
I have no relation to Bethany Funk.
And I'm sorry I spelled your name wrong, my friend.
That's okay.
I didn't get a chance to fix it when I found out, and I was just typing mindlessly, and so I'm so sorry about that.
There are worse ways to misspell it.
Yes, and welcome. It's good to meet you finally. I followed you quite often with the Queens here, and I think you do an amazing job. I appreciate you joining us. I'm sorry that you've had such a busy day, and now you got to jump in here too.
Oh my gosh, family law lawyers can talk and talk and talk and talk. This was supposed to be done in the morning.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here for the first time, and hopefully this isn't the last time, sir. It's great to meet you.
Sure. Oh no, I'm happy to be here.
Well, Kristen and I were short-winded, and we were done in 5 hours, Ron. So
we saved a whole bunch of really good questions that we weren't quite completely sure on for you.
Good.
Yeah, we got questions. We're ready to go for you, Ron.
But I do want to know about that one about the civil case. If Brian, does Brian have a right to be at the civil hearing against WSU if he is? Say first he's subpoenaed and 2 he's not subpoenaed.
There we go. We'll start with that one.
No, I don't think he does because he's not a party. I mean, technically, any member of the public should be able to observe a trial, but he's in jail. He's in prison, so I doubt they'll let him get out for that. I don't see anybody ordering him there, either subpoenaing him there or anything. I don't think he's a necessary party. So I don't see
So you
him
don't believe
participating.
that WSU would subpoena him per se or depose him per se to make a statement to testify for this situation whatsoever?
Well, you know, they could depose him. They potentially could depose him.
Okay.
You know what? Let me walk that back a little. I suppose somebody could call him as a witness.
Mm-hmm.
But as a party, no. But yeah, I guess they could. Although I'll tell you, once when I was a very, very young attorney, we had a case in federal court that involved a death in a prison, and we deposed. Well, not me, but the other attorneys deposed some of the inmates who were witnesses to this incident. And what we did is, because they were in prison, the judge allowed us to just read their deposition in as their testimony. And in fact, for one of them, I got up on the stand and we did it question answer for the jury, so that I kind of sat in the place of the inmates and answered questions. And we just read the deposition that way. That it probably would be more something like that.
Isn't part of it too, though, Ron, going to be dependent on where this lawsuit goes because of the nature of WSU's response in alleging that maybe someone else is involved, that depending on discovery, he may be more and more of an important part of their case?
Yeah, he very well could. And either side might potentially want him to come and testify, depending on what some of the evidence is that comes in. So yeah, I think he is open game for that. He's not technically involved in the lawsuit, but he could be deposed. I would expect potentially his deposition would just be read into the record, but they could take it by video too, and that could be played.
That's what we were thinking. Because could you imagine how much law enforcement would have to come if the deposition was done in person? I mean, that would be circus. That would be insane. I've watched probably one too many jail reality shows where I've seen inmates being deposed or actually giving a statement.
And
this is what Kristen does instead of sleeping.
Yeah. I have a lot of guilty pleasures.
It is what it is. We all have our things, that's for sure. That is
the courts are very well equipped, though, to deal with inmates coming into court.
Yeah.
And they have lots of law enforcement. They have deputies. Here it's deputies who are part of the courtroom. They can call more in, and they have holding cells generally, or holding areas in the courthouses where they will keep them there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Even for civil cases?
Yeah, I've had that. In fact, I've had a client who was incarcerated at the time, and we had to have him brought in to come and testify in this hearing.
Yeah, Tomboy had asked earlier if he was per se subpoenaed, so on and so forth. They could probably do a Zoom or have his deposition read or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And that's a good point too, because especially since COVID, there's a lot more remote hearings and so forth. In fact, that's what I was just doing. I was here in Temecula appearing in a case in LA remotely, and so that's becoming more and more. We're getting more and more used to it, and I think judges are allowing it a little more these days.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Now,
but I have one more question real quick on that same. What if his deposition is being taken, and he doesn't answer, or everything is non-responsive? Like, how do you see that going, Ron? Because obviously we've only seen him talk very, very, very little. What do you have any predictions or how that would be handled?
Well, what would happen is if he refuses to answer questions that he should answer, which is anything that's not privileged, and at this point, because he's already passed judgment, he doesn't have his Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate himself anymore, at least as to these charges. And so he wouldn't probably be able to benefit from the Fifth Amendment, which isn't as it's handled a little differently in civil cases anyway. For instance, you can make assumptions against somebody in civil cases if they plead the Fifth and don't testify. You can't do that. You can't make assumptions like that in criminal cases. Or the judge could order him to, they would file, I know here in California, we'd file a motion to compel and ask the judge to order him to sit and answer these questions. The judge would do it. Of course, to enforce that, if he was in contempt of that and didn't do it, then the judge would send him to jail, which, you know, it's kind of, hey,
yeah,
go ahead.
Understood. There was one more question by the same gentleman. He had asked, and I can't pull it up because it's in the background now, but I have it saved. It says, if information comes to light in a civil case that Brian was not fully responsible for the crime, and it's proved that another party was involved, how would that play out? Brian surely can't then still take all the responsibility, in your legal opinion, I guess.
And that's a great question. Whoever answered it, Sam and I have answered that. Sam and I have asked Ron that same question multiple times.
Moto Man dropped that one again. And thank you, Moto Man, for both these awesome questions you've dropped so far, my friend.
Yep. Good question. There's a couple of things at play here. One is if there was evidence that was clear evidence that somebody else participated, then I think it would be up to the law enforcement in Moscow and the prosecutor to decide, well, do we need to chase down somebody else for this? If it's something that could exonerate Brian, then there are post-judgment options available for him that he could pursue as well. If it's something that exonerated him and showed that he didn't do it. Now, if it's just someone else participated, I think that's another issue. It wouldn't really affect him that much, but I think there would be a lot of pressure for the prosecutor in Moscow to pursue this other evidence.
Yeah, I don't think he cares a whole lot if it's the same prosecutor.
Right.
I think he's Thompson.
So this other question just popped up. Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah.
Says, what would happen if Brian said, I didn't do it during a deposition or something like that, which is a wild question.
Then we would all get on a live immediately.
Right away. In the
Spread
middle of
it
the night.
near and far.
Yes.
Well, I think whatever leverage, because I'm
That would break
and
the
I think it's I'm okay to say I'm not convinced that he did this by himself. I'm not convinced that he's not involved somehow, and I believe that there's probably somebody who has some leverage over him. If he said, I didn't do it, that might put in play whatever leverage somebody has, and there may be consequences. I don't know. I don't know what that leverage is.
Gotcha.
So I would be surprised if that happened. Particularly because he didn't pursue any direct appeal right after the plea. So that tells me that he's going to live with it. He's planning on going forward with this, and whatever leverage somebody has over him, he's gonna, that's what it's gonna be.
Okay, but just to give you a little hard time, Ron, coming right back from court, what if he changes his mind? He's lapsed some of the appellate remedies, but certainly not all post-conviction relief, right? And what if he's been in there long enough that he's like, you know what? Maybe there is some leverage, but I'm feeling a little reckless. I'm going to go for it.
Maybe he decides, I don't like my mom that much anyway.
Great question, Sam. Great question.
But well, he could. There are remedies. There's still some state remedies that he could pursue, but he would need a much different showing than he might be able to appeal. He would need some really, really convincing evidence that would exonerate him. You generally would have to show that it was either impossible for him to have committed it, or at least inherently improbable. Which honestly, after seeing all those pictures that were released and all the cleanup that was done afterwards, I think we're getting in that realm.
Okay, so Ron,
yeah,
and I know there's a couple questions that just came through. So if WSU's attorneys actually prove or bring enough evidence to the table to prove that Brian didn't do this alone, or there were other entities or there were other attackers that participate in this, can they take that information and run it into use it for an appeal? I know there's a couple questions along
for an
those
appeal
lines.
for who?
Good question.
So if it comes out that I'm just assuming arguendo,
yeah,
that there were 3 other perpetrators and there is solid evidence that supports that, and assuming just for argument that they were the main perpetrators, can Brian take that evidence from this WSU case and use it in an appeal in his criminal case, and file that appeal with the hope to, I don't know, exonerate him or get it back into the trial court?
In a post judgment, yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm an appellate attorney, so I get a little specific.
Take your time.
It's essentially we look at the appeal and post judgment process kind of as one big group of stuff. It would be not necessarily an appeal, but it would be part of that process. He could take that and he could say, if it exonerates him, if he was still part of it, that would be difficult, because there's still going to be some participation there by him, which might have, which I think would get in the way of him. Really of exoneration. Totally. I think he would have to be totally exonerated.
That would be considered new evidence, correct?
It would be. I would think, yeah.
Okay.
I'm still hoping there's some witness out here that's going to come forward that knows something that has matured over the years, and he or she cannot live with the fact that they've grown up and they've matured, and that somebody potentially could be spending the rest of their life in prison, and they have information that maybe they were threatened or that they were told to keep their mouth quiet 3 years ago. But that's what I'm really holding out for.
I'm there with you on that one too, Kristen. Real quick, I want to ask, because he's got a couple in here. One is our resident local NYPD police officer. Again, he joins us over on the Devil's Advocates panel every night at 9 p.m. when we do our show over there. And he's got a couple questions as well. One of them was, because this is a big deal, we've all been talking about this lately. What happens when it's proven that Brian's car is not suspect vehicle number 1? If that's proven, how does that affect anything at this point where we're at with the case? And thank you, 1-1.
I would like to think it would, and it should. You got to understand, there's kind of a couple of different worlds that we live in here. There's the world that should be and the world that is. In the world that should be, absolutely, I would think it should.
Yeah, it's the
practical matter. You have to get I think you'd kind of have to get the right people interested in that, the right people believing it. And if there's anything we've learned in recent years, that two different people can look at the same fact or same evidence and come to completely different conclusions from it.
Sure.
So while it may be proven in our minds or somebody's minds that those are the different cars, someone may either not care enough to really look at it or disagree. Like, no, I think his car did have fog lights. I think he took them out, or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me, because you would think that there would have been an expert, an auto expert, to really bring that home. I have a hard time obviously there's a lot of stuff we don't know that happened behind the scenes, but I have a really hard time that issue wasn't pushed farther. If that was unequivocally not his car, that there were not multiple experts that potentially were going to make a report that
Sure.
could not have been his car because it didn't have fog lights, or it did have fog lights, or whatever else, the trim. I have a hard time with that one.
Understood.
All that is why I think there is some involvement with him in this whole thing. Because, for instance, if it was me, if they just grabbed me off the street and said, "Hey, we think you did it. We're gonna kill your family or whatever if you don't take the fall for us."
Right.
Well, I'd be working behind the scenes as much as I could with FBI or whatever.
Yes.
I get the feeling he just kind of rolled over on this, almost as if he knew he was going down somehow anyway. It may not be for the actual action, but it may be in some way.
And
Again, that's just kind of me looking at all this and how quickly they went from no, we don't have all the discovery to I did it.
Yeah. Now I got
plead
you.
guilty. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison.
I understand.
Have
completely.
you, Ron, ever had a client that made decisions that made no sense?
Never. No. Yes. All the time.
I like his sense of humor. I do. I love it.
Yeah.
Ron, there's some chats. So do you think that Cy Ray will be deposed in this case? With respect to some of the phone records and the tracking and whatnot? Because I mean, I could see WSU putting him on their witness list.
I mean, there's a lot of, that's a good point too, Kristen, because there's a lot of these things from the Idaho case that will make this.
If they're getting after the alternate, that there was more than one perpetrator and potentially entities and or persons, I could see them calling.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so smart that part of their response is, okay, we'll admit he did it, but it could be other people too. Because I think it opens the door to look at everyone and look at all these other inconsistent statements and look under all those rocks.
It's almost like they half came out and said, yeah, we know he this is adjudicated and we do have this conviction. But by the way,
So in turn, if they were
I almost feel like they were just coming out ready to attack and saying, hey, we're going to take the wind out of your sails. And
because
we'll admit he did it. But guess what? There's more.
Because go ahead.
No. I was just going to say real quick. I'm so sorry, Sam. I like that you asked that question too, Sam, because it relates to another couple questions that were in here in the same time. If they were to call Cy Ray to the stand and he were to testify to the fact that I'm not saying he will do this, and that I'm not saying it's a fact, it's just a thought, that he can show proof of sorts that Brian wasn't even in Moscow that night. And as they're asking him questions on this, that would completely implode this entire thing, in my opinion. Is that true? Relating to both these questions, I should say.
No, I think that would. They could really take a couple of directions, go a couple directions on this. One is, this was Brian, only him. He did it. We didn't. We had nothing to do with it. That was all on him. He's already admitted it.
Right.
He's already pled guilty. And they could attack the connection between him and the victims, and the foreseeability. Or they could go the direction of, there's other people involved, and they've left it open for them to go both ways. And you are allowed to make alternative arguments. Sometimes if you do that to the jury, it might undermine you a little bit. So they may decide, I'm going to take this avenue rather than this one by the time it gets to a jury, if it gets to a jury.
Right.
But I certainly think they would explore both avenues to see which is the strongest for them.
Well, and I mean, is it really that much of a contradiction to say, well, maybe something else happened here, but also no matter what you guys say, we don't have the duty?
I don't think it's necessarily that big of a contradiction. It might kind of draw out the, you know, sometimes the defense wants to throw up as much as you can. So they may, but if you want to have a coherent argument, sometimes you want to go with your strongest points and make your strongest arguments.
I have two things I want to throw at you real quick. One is from Jenny Jones. I'm going to get to that one next. But my question is still playing off of this Ray thing, okay? If that were all to play out that way, okay, and this is definitely, you know, we're reaching on this, guys, because we have no idea, obviously, that this would ever even come to play. But let's say, for instance, Cy does depose, he gets on the stand, whatever happens, okay? And that comes out, and he says and makes the statement, Brian was not in Moscow that night. I have proof. Here it is. Boom, boom, boom. Could that, obviously, like you said, that would definitely implode the case, and in my opinion and yours. Could that come back to Judge Hippler because he didn't allow Cy to make that show that proof or that whatever that statement was during that hearing that time? Could that come back to him? Because that would have been something really like important to this case. You know what I mean?
I don't think it necessarily come back to Judge Hippler on anything, because that case is done. That's a judgment. It's final. And, you know, that's that. What it could potentially do is provide now this assumes, because I would expect if the defendants bring Cy Ray, the plaintiffs may bring somebody else as an expert to try to counter him and try to show why no, Cy Ray's out to lunch and he was there and this is what it does, and hope that they make it confusing enough to the jury that they just said, well, he pled guilty, so we'll believe he did it. But if they were able to prove and provide very clear evidence, and I think it has to be very clear evidence that exonerates him, then potentially you can put pressure on the prosecutor to reopen the investigation and find what other leads they have and pursue that. Sure. And it would require probably quite the public outcry and maybe some pressure from people in power in Idaho, which, you know, who knows where their heads are on this, by the way.
Okay, Ron, I have a really good question to add on to exactly what you're talking about. It's coming from the chat, but I like this one too. Is there any scenario that the 1112 video is subpoenaed with the unredacted audio?
Oh, wow. That is a good
one.
Where is it?
I think that was Sausage Biscuits. That's a great question.
Does it still exist unredacted, and where is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the one you've heard it, Ron. That's the one that they released, that part of there's a overlap where you can hear the audio in one FOIA request that the video was sent out, and then shortly thereafter another video comes out and it's completely muted, but there is an overlap, so we know that there was audio.
Jules True Crime Reactions put out all of those, and she got completely raw from MPD, so on and so forth. So it's absolute,
Then they could, and then there's still a lot of interpretation issues around that too. So
which
even
require
that
experts, right?
Yeah, you'd have to have experts. This is going to be a battle of experts, I would expect. There's a lot of places for expert testimony.
Well,
nothing half-assed said. It's I actually like that name too. But the audio was silent from 12 to 2:30 and then 2:25.
Yes.
Sorry, at 2:25 there was audio. So it was that 2:25 to 2:30 that we had already heard the audio. But then when they gave us, that 12:25 to 2:30, there was no audio. And it's like, wait, but we just had audio for that 5 minutes that you gave us last week. It's a sus, to say the least.
And the thing is with all these questions that you guys are seeing coming at us, especially with Ron being here, and I'm super grateful for this too. Because that's all any of us want, Ron, I'm sure, as do you, just out of curiosity, I'm sure, is like truth and answers to what the hell is going on here. It's crazy. So it seems like there's a lot of questions that are being asked about things that are in relation to the case that's closed, with Brian more than even the lawsuit itself, because I think a lot of people are looking towards the lawsuit and possibly the discovery that gets, brought forth and so on and so forth as possibly being implemental and doing something more with the Idaho 4 case itself. I'm seeing a lot of that throughout multiple communities and chats and channels. So
now here, let me rain a little bit on everybody's parade.
I kind of figured, yes.
while the litigation is going on, all of whatever is produced in discovery is not necessarily going to be made public.
Of course.
And it may be that we have to wait until first see what happens at trial, and then after trial to get at it from FOIA, from Washington State potentially, unless they can claim attorney-client privilege or some sort of privilege. But they don't have, neither side in the civil case has the same duty that perhaps the municipality does for transparency here.
Sure. Thank you for that. And again, folks, we all know this. As he said, let me rain on a little bit of your parade. We know that already. I mean, whatever our wishful thoughts are and whatever we would like to see happen, we have to be realistic always, no matter what, and we have to make sure, as much as we may not agree or like the way it goes at times, follow the judicial path the way that it's supposed to, folks, and that's just how it works.
On the other hand, anything that's filed in court, unless there's an order to seal the record, which is really, really difficult. It's supposed to be very difficult to get, especially in a civil case.
Yeah.
Which, usually you're looking at, are there people's mental health records that are at issue? You see it a lot on child custody stuff involving minor children. We don't have that here. You have potentially for a company that has some proprietary information, they may seek some sort of an order sealing it, but it's generally supposed to be very difficult to do. So if any of these things get filed with the federal court, anybody, and I'm pretty sure we don't work in federal court. I used to, but we don't in family court. But generally, I think if you have a PACER account, you should be able to get request anything. If you get to a motion to dismiss, for instance, which is, and I forget the exact rule number, I think it's a 26 motion, which is like what we call a summary judgment. There would be a lot of evidence attached to that would then be filed with the court. That would be something you'd really want to get and look at, because that would be both sides. One side trying to show why you should dismiss this, the other side showing why there's evidence to take it to a trial, and you're going to see all that, and you should be able to get that.
Right, absolutely. Well, Twizzle said, with that being said, it should be hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Brian did anything, and he still pled guilty. Right, I know.
Beyond a reasonable doubt doesn't come into play here.
Different burden.
Okay.
They could, if they prove just by preponderance of the evidence, which is, let's say you got your scales of justice, like you see, you've got 100 grams of evidence on this side, 100 grams on this side. If you put one more grain of sand on this side and it barely tips your way, then you've proven by preponderance of the evidence your fact. So that's why you get these inconsistent verdicts, like the OJ case, where he was found not guilty because they didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. But in the civil case, he was found liable. He was found liable because they only had to prove preponderance of the evidence.
Yeah, I think he said he was referring to the Brian case. Yeah. So gotcha. Sorry about that.
A lot of people don't know that it's a different burden of proof.
And that's right, which is good to know too. That does help to know. And I think, like I said, I think the biggest thing here is a lot of people are really, really wondering, to condense everything, will this or could this WSU lawsuit affect Brian Kohberger's case? Could it change his case? I think you guys have explained a lot of that so far as how it could or couldn't or wouldn't or shouldn't or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, look at it this way, Dago. It can't hurt him.
Right. I mean, he's done now.
I mean, he's not, that's the way when I analyze things. How does this help me and how does this hurt me? And Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's kind of already at rock bottom, right? Hopefully there's an appeal being worked on that we don't know about. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. You know, I don't know that. Who knows if there is one? And a lot of people ask this question to us too, is if an appeal is filed while this civil case is going on, Ron, would that put a stay on one of the cases until the other one's resolved?
I've thought about that. I think it might, because his guilt is an essential element of this case. And so I think if something, some post-judgment motion was filed, it may be that it could result in some sort of a stay of this case, you know, even if it's just the judge saying, hey, let's not go to trial yet. Let's see where this goes.
So and to add to the other part of what I was saying, because I see a lot of people are asking Brian stuff again. And then I want to jump back over to the WSU stuff if we can, because we haven't really got to go, you know, talk with Ron about that. But real quick, because I know everybody wants to know this, it being that what you do is in the appeals department, like what options, if any, still at this point, as we passed other deadlines and whatever, does Brian Kohberger have if he were to choose one at this point, Ron, that you know of?
He's still got some state options available. If I remember right, his 1 year window ends in September on that. And so there are some certain things, you know, potentially ineffective assistance of counsel, potentially if there was some evidence exonerating him.
Gotcha. Once
those expire, then you're probably looking mostly at federal habeas corpus. And you're looking at, is there clear evidence that exonerates him, that makes the guilty plea either inherently impossible or improbable.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that, sir. I do appreciate it. And I know that that's like the question of the hour for everybody that wants to know. So I really
anyone that wants to know more, we actually did a full episode on this. I think it's on our channel. I think it's called post-conviction relief or something, but we go through each of the different options and what is it, you know, what is the procedure, what is the process for each one, because a lot of people especially more of the guilters, they always want to say he waived every single appeal in his plea deal and that right is gone. And you can very politely educate, you know, that person that you cannot waive every appeal, even in a plea deal.
That is facts. Yeah. Thank you for that.
That's a good question on the screen right now.
Yes. Can WSU force Dylan and Bethany, for whatever reason need be, to testify at this this hearing?
Your niece, right, Ron? Your niece?
Yes, your niece, Bethany. I love the way you guys do this. I just love the relationship. It's awesome. Truly and honestly.
Sam and I love messing with Ron.
Yeah, everybody does.
It's the only break I get from Kristen teasing me is when we gang to ask you questions.
If it helps at all, Ron, we do appreciate you, your input, your thoughts, feelings always. And we all in here, multiple communities, watch everything you guys do. So.
And that's a great question for Bethany, because my understanding is she's never come back to Idaho since she left, right?
No, she's gone and stayed gone purposely, in my opinion. Yes.
There's a lot of layers to this question. They could try to subpoena both Dylan and Bethany. If they're not in Washington, then they would probably have to do it wherever they are. They'd have to there are procedures they'd have to go through to do that. I've done out-of-state depots like that. but both of them, or the other part, or the plaintiffs, the plaintiffs could file a motion for some sort of a protective order by saying that that's irrelevant, or it really has no bearing on the issues in this case. And that would be an interesting question, because what they're looking at is the foreseeability and everything, which is that related to what happened? Because I think they're mostly looking at everything that happened up until the time of the killing. But
Ron, do you
I
see
think
Sausage Biscuit's question? That's a good question related to Dylan that she's. Can you see it? Or Sam, can you read it to him?
Which one was it? Let me see.
The one that Sausage Biscuits just asked about.
Oh, right there. Yeah, and I have another one from Moto 2. What is the weight of Dylan's deposition testimony being proven to be a lie that she was on her phone when she said she was asleep, and then 8 hours to call as a material witness? Thank you, Sausage.
I think, well, there's a few things involved in this too, because Dylan, if what she has to say might incriminate her, she could plead the fifth.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
There could be, I would expect before they did that, somebody would run a protective motion saying, what relevance does that have to do to the duty that Washington State, first, the control they have over Brian, and the foreseeability issue and any connection he has to the Idaho 4. My response to that would be, we want to see if they have some relationship with him, and whether they know of any relationship between him and the victims.
And or what if there were more people?
Yeah.
If WSU is agreeing because of the conviction that BK did it, but there were other people, then certainly you would argue it was relevant.
And that's actually written in the statement in the complaint. Right. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
But in federal court, the judge has a lot of control over the discovery and can often limit the discovery. And I could see this being an issue early on. They're going to have a meeting coming up where everybody says what discovery they want. And I could see the judge saying, hey, I think they're too far removed from this. I'm not going to let you take their depositions at this, maybe.
Well, and both of them have attorneys on in their immediate families. I think it's Dylan's stepmom, if I'm correct. And is her dad some political office or something? I don't know. So it's her stepmom. And then doesn't Bethany have one of her parents, her mom?
Bethany's father's a dentist. I think her mother has
the infamous
to do in the legal field, and Dylan's stepmother is an attorney. Yes, her attorney too.
Yeah. So if they're saying no, we're not coming, for whatever reason, that would be an issue for the federal judge to rule on, right, Rob?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So I think there's going to be a lot of wrangling over how broad discovery the judge is actually going to allow. And whether there's going to be an initial round of discovery, and then depending on what happens then, is there going to be more? We'll see. There should be probably within a few weeks some sort of a scheduling meeting and scheduling order that lays all this out.
Their first hearing is on the 27th. Do you think that's something they would probably discuss?
I think that's the scheduling meeting. Yeah.
Do you think they would have a referee, a discovery referee in a case, or a discovery master in a case like this?
No, I think the judge kind of takes that role in federal court. So it'll be interesting. There should be some sort of an order resulting from that hearing, and we'll know a lot more about what discovery is being done and being allowed in this.
Gotcha. Good to know. Moto Man asked another good question, I think. And does this lawsuit potentially expose a possibility that Idaho State University had to point to a WSU student because of financial reasons and a possible strategy to poach students from WSU due to damaged reputation? And if so, could WSU possibly, I guess, sue Idaho State University? And thank you again, Moto Man.
I don't think so, because this is brought by the victims' families.
Yeah, right.
And not really by Idaho State. And so I think that's a little too far removed from the issues that are involved in this case. This is more over their control of Brian as an employee.
Gotcha.
And his ties to the victims in the incident.
Wouldn't you similarly have a major causation issue?
Yeah, I think you would. And I don't know if there's statute of limitations has passed on that anyway, because I know that that's why this lawsuit came up at this point. For ISU to sue WSU for something related to that. I think we're past that statute of limitations for them to make a claim, and I'm not sure that they at this point would be able to do that. That'd be interesting to see exactly what it is for that sort of a case.
I'm sorry, I have a question to add to that, in a sense, with what you're saying about the statutes.
Yeah.
Because I know it's been stated to me before by others, that nobody can sue MPD or Latah County or ISU or whatever, however it would work out, because that time's passed. But if this were to get brought up in WSU, as was written in the complaint, or I'm sorry, the response from WSU to the complaint, that there's other entities that are responsible per se for damages in this situation, blah, blah, blah. Can that in turn provoke the possibility of some form of a situation where Idaho State, Moscow PD, Idaho State Police, and or Latah County can be sued for a certain specific reason based on this, whatever were to get brought up out of this lawsuit?
If they were to show that Idaho Police or Moscow PD or ISU somehow had some culpability, that might start the statute of limitations again on somebody, and potentially it could open it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's interesting.
We go on the 27th.
Yeah. So he's asking, do you know if it's open to where he's able to go?
Court proceedings are generally supposed to be open. And
Even
so
federal?
I would expect that there's going to be people going to the court. These meetings, I seem to remember that when I've been involved in that sort of a meeting, we ended up going in the judge's chambers, just the attorneys, and talking with the judge, and people wouldn't be allowed back in there.
Right.
So you might go and sit out in the courtroom while everybody's talking back in the judge's chambers, because that's an exception to the open court. You can't go back in the judge's chambers unless you're specifically invited. And they are allowed to go back and discuss things with the judge out of the public.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Interesting. Now this question, I don't remember this, but I don't know if you guys might have looked at something and saw the answer possibly to this about the Gonzalves family filing paperwork in the very beginning that they had the right to sue Moscow PD.
Oh, that's just the notice, Ron, that they...
Yeah. Did they send them a notice?
Oh, wait, with Moscow PD. Oh, that's different than what I was thinking.
Yeah, it could be if they filed a notice of claim, but I think the time to file a lawsuit based on that is past at this point. So I think if they did that, it may be something that they dropped.
So if they did it and sent a notice, there would still be a statute of limitations associated with it.
Yeah, there would. And I think a lot of the criticisms of Moscow PD are after the murders. And so it's in the investigation, which this is a survivor action, which means the family is suing for the pain and suffering of the victims that they suffered before they died.
Right.
And so that is not going to be relevant to what happened after they died. And so I think there would be very limited damages potentially available in anything like that. And so that's how they're doing that, because this is really the only way, or the main way that they can get it. And they did, and you know what? They did sue exclusively as personal representatives of the victims' estates, which says this is a survivor action. They're not, I don't see causes of action in here for their loss of care and companionship of the decedents, which is, I've pursued a number of those in state court here in California. In fact, we tended more to do something like that than to do a survivor action like this, though I think it's probably a function of the different damages available in Washington versus California. I think monetary, I think there are some very stronger limits in Washington on what kind of damages you can get, so it may not be worth it. This may be the main way that they can get some significant damages out of the university.
Sure. Okay. Somebody at Sausage Biscuits had asked again. I just love saying it. I love the name. Is that a tort claim where you like filed something to preserve the statute, like a place card holder or type thing? Is that what that's? I think that's, they're asking if that's what that is.
When you sue a governmental entity, you have to give the governmental entity a notice that you're going to sue them, a notice that you have a claim. There are specific time periods for you to do that. It looks like in Washington that is a year, basically before the expiration of a year after the incident.
Gotcha.
I think in California, if I remember right, we used to have to file those within 6 months, I think. Yes, it is kind of a placeholder, because what it does is it gives the governmental entity, and this is part of the entity, a governmental entity has to give you, the state has to give you the right to sue them. Otherwise, you don't have that. So most states have that in their constitutions and in their laws, essentially tort claims acts. Here's how you can sue us. You have to do these things. So one of the first thing you have to do is give them notice. That gives them an opportunity to investigate it and explore potentially trying to settle with you before a lawsuit's filed. And in Washington, I think it extended the statute of limitations, I think, by 2 months. And so they filed it by filing it shortly before the statute of limitations expired. They extended that by 2 months. So, and that was about the time. Well, actually, I think they filed it within a month or so. But yeah, so it is kind of a placeholder, but it's the mechanism that the state entity gives you for being able to sue them.
So you have to get permission before you can sue them.
Not permission, notice.
I'm being more sarcastic because I was like, how do we
Well,
all
actually,
get that?
technically,
How do
I
we
think
all
you're
get that?
right. Because if they didn't give you the ability to do that in their own laws, then you wouldn't be able to do it. So yeah, I guess you are right.
Okay, Ron, here's a good question. And it's a really good one, I think. How come Dylan can plead the fifth, but BK can't?
He can.
Good question.
And I'm sure he did. But
no, within the civil case, yes.
Now, because his criminal case is over. He's already been found guilty by his plea, and so he is not facing additional criminal charges. If there's nothing been done with Dylan or Bethany, and so if they feel that their answers could give rise to some sort of criminal liability, then they can plead the fifth.
Okay, Ron, similarly, I've heard this come up in the Karen Reed, the federal Karen Reed case that's in process. I have heard similar commentary that some of those defendants will not, same thing, they're going to take the fifth because there's potential that they either were part of the death of the police officer, John O'Keefe, or they participated in it, or evidence that's going to come out through the civil case may show that. And so I've heard this a similar analysis with respect to those defendants in that case as well.
Here's the difference between pleading guilty pleading the fifth in a criminal case versus pleading the fifth in a civil case. In a criminal case, the prosecution and the jury and the judge are not allowed to use that against you. They aren't allowed to make any inferences. If you plead the fifth, they can't say, oh, you must be guilty, you're hiding something. You don't have that same protection in a civil case. So if you are sued in a civil case and you're a party to that case and you plead the fifth, then they get to point to that and say, hey, they're admitting that that's essentially an admission. They have some sort of culpability here. They've got some reason to be scared, and you can make the inference that potentially that they are liable. And that's the difference between pleading the fifth in a civil case versus a criminal.
Can they use that inference to then turn around and arrest them for something criminally?
No, because that would be using the Fifth Amendment against them in the criminal case. So that's why you would plead the fifth in a civil case, even though it would affect you negatively. And we see this a lot of times in domestic violence cases. And I've had it where I had one where we were up against trial, and my client, there were some allegations made against my client, and he had some potential culpability. There was a criminal investigation we knew going on, and he had a criminal attorney who was helping him out with that. But the judge was forcing us to go forward in our domestic violence trial. He had to make the decision, do I plead the fifth and protect myself against criminal charges, or do I testify and take the risk that what I testify to, which may be an admission that could hurt me in the criminal case, take the risk that'll lead to criminal charges. He pled the fifth, so the judge said, "Okay, you can't testify. I'll take the allegations of the wife, and based on that, we find against you. We find that you committed domestic violence." And that was, I told him that was what was going to happen, and he knew it, and so we kind of had to do that. But yeah, so they can't then use that pleading the fifth to bring criminal charges against you. So you have to decide: am I worried about money, or am I more worried about my freedom?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Roxy asked here, I have a question. Technically, couldn't any of the families use a minor in the family to sue Moscow PD for damages because it would increase the statute limitations for 6 years?
Probably not. And here's why. 2 reasons, really. One, these are pled as the personal representative of the estate of the decedents. So that can't, by definition, be a minor. You can't be a personal representative of an estate as a minor. So they can't. Also, if it was another type of action where they were to sue for loss of care, companionship, potential finances, it would have to be by their direct heirs. And in the cases of all 4 of these, that would be their parents, because they don't have children. Potentially, if they had children, well, there might be a spouse, then it would be the spouse, and then potentially the children. So, and actually, that is the limit of my knowledge. And I think there's one step. If they had children and no spouse, could the child then extend it? I don't know, because if I would think so, because the principle underlying that is that a minor doesn't have the ability to make that decision. They have to be an adult. So I guess in that situation, that limited situation, potentially, but that doesn't apply here on these. So that was a really, really good question. I'm glad you made me go through that thought process.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I know, like I said, I know your mind is
No,
probably.
it's a great question.
These people have amazing questions. They're really very intellectually attached to this, and they always out. And these questions, I wish I could answer some of them, but I can't even remotely.
And there's some really great YouTube names as well. I
love
like
sausage biscuits too.
I like the twizzle sticks. I like that. I was just watching the Olympics, and there's lots of twizzles. I think isn't that a move in the ice dance? I'm obsessed with ice dance right now, but they did not give out the right medal.
Right.
That's a different podcast, right?
Yes.
No, there's some really, really good questions. Sam, wasn't there a couple that we were saving for Ron? I can't remember.
I know I put 2 of them up that Moto had asked for Ron. You guys said were Ron's, and I can't.
We went through them. I think that there was one more that Moto had asked about whether or not this could reopen up if the criminal case is reopened up on the BK side. Would that potential, is there a way that the death penalty could be put back on the table?
That was another one. Yes.
Oh yeah, that was one. That's a good one, Sam.
If something were to come back on this and it does get reopened, because I had stated, Ron, just from something I read, that once the death penalty is removed, end of story, it can't be put back. And I want to know if that's true or not, because the way I read it, that's how I took it. But if it's not true, if they were to take this all the way back to where it can go back to, back to trial, can they put that and reset it back in the same proportion that it was at that point?
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think the question had something to do with,
What?
Just kidding. I almost logged myself off. I think the question had something to do with like if the plea deal was set aside, Ron.
Yeah.
If the plea deal was set aside, yes, I believe that would bring all all potential remedies, including the death penalty, back to the table. But
it sends them back to pre-trial litigation, right?
Yeah, but I think that it also depends on what the evidence or that led to the setting aside was. If it was that he was exonerated, that he didn't do it, then unless he did something else that warrants the death penalty, then no, I would not think that would be an issue. And I wouldn't think that he would move to set it aside if it wasn't something that he felt would take the death penalty completely off the table.
Wow. Interesting. 1-1 again is our he works for NYPD, and he's got
love the name 1-1. Love it.
He's been asking a lot of questions that he has definitely curiosities about. And if it were to come forward that something was done in the wrong direction, in the wrong way by the prosecution, is there any possibility that Ashley Jennings and or Bill Thompson could possibly face any kind of charges for any wrongdoings or any maybe lying or anything about evidence or
intentional concealment of discovery, possibly, just theoretically?
They have a lot. They have a lot of, there's prosecutorial immunity, and there's a lot of immunity attached with law enforcement and prosecutors and judges. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that they could do that would sidestep those immunities and make them liable. Some sort of public corruption charges, bribery potentially, those sorts of things. Just being horrible at your job, no. But it would require something a little collateral to their job, something that they do on the side that is fraudulent or corruption of some sort.
Okay, so they had asked this one too, and I think go ahead, Kristen. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I have kind of a question. I was actually watching. What creator was I watching? I can't remember. I watch so much stuff when I'm driving or listen to it when I'm driving. While I'm ready.
Right.
No, but I truly can't remember who it was, but there was something along the lines that Steve G had come out fairly early on in this case where he had a lot of questions and did not necessarily believe DM and BF's story. And he indicated that he was threatened to keep his mouth shut, basically with respect to those two, and that someone actually drove up, I believe it was like to the driveway of his house. And something along the lines is, you know, you don't want to go down that path. And he very openly said that he was threatened. Oh, are these the text messages that everyone's talking about? Was this? I've watched so much.
It could have been. It could have been part of those. Yeah.
I think I was watching a creator and it was Harsh. I was watching Harsh and he was showing screenshots of text messages. I think they were between Steve G and Brad Norton.
Yeah.
And he was being very honest that he was threatened very early on to keep his mouth shut about those two witnesses, and that Steve believed that they were cleared too early, which I think most of the world would agree with now. And that they should be very careful going down that line of questioning or theory. And I think that is interesting, but if I'm WSU, I'd want to know if that actually happened in this case.
Agreed. I don't know how I missed that. That's wild.
I'll send you the screenshot, Dago.
I'm trying to think if that could WSU,
It was,
you know, I would expect at some point they're probably going to depose the plaintiffs. They're kind of limited in what relevant information they might have. I think mostly they'll be talking about the relationship with the decedents and all. I don't know if it would go as far as that. That would be a great question, though.
Right, but if they're going after the alternate perps or the additional perps and the entities, one of the best ways to get that information in is who was on a subject or suspect list. Who did, you know, what other theory did you have at the very beginning of anyone else that was involved? I mean, how else are they going to get this information in with respect to these additional perpetrators?
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting and good point. I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm thinking. I'm sorry. I paused.
No, because if there was, hey, keep your mouth shut about this. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You're going to keep it super quiet.
I would.
A, why, and B,
Yes.
were they initial subjects?
That's a very good point, and a very good question, Kristen, because I think there's a lot of that, and that we've kind of looked at and looked over, I guess you could say it. And it looks like you were going to make a response, Ron. Go ahead. And I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to like.
Oh, no. No, I was just saying, you know, they want to, and they left it open to point the finger. And yeah, I think that would be a valid line of inquiry. That's why I'm really interested to see what discovery is going to be done after that initial meeting.
Right.
I think that's going to tell us a lot about where this case is going to go.
Well, this is another point. Like a lot of this stuff, I don't know if you guys had saw a lot of this because you came in a little bit later, but like this one here, Jesse posted, Gabby Vargas, the DNA expert who testified. Once she testified, within days, if not the next day, Bill Thompson, we were told, sent the FBI to her house, or they went to her house and basically told her, no, and retract your statement, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And she never testified again. Mm-hmm. So things like that happening. I mean, she herself said that it happened.
Wow.
There's been a lot of that kind of stuff that's happened. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So this is a monstrous, in my opinion, red flag in this case, that people are being told to shut your mouth, people are being threatened. We've had YouTubers that have gone to Moscow and Pullman, so on and so forth. They've been threatened. We had one specifically that went into the corner club, sat down, was on his laptop, bought a drink, talking to people on the back patio. He was not inside the establishment, and somebody was eyeballing him from the other side of a fence. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, the owner walks over and mother F's him and dumps his drink, tells him to get the F out, never come back. We know why you're here, blah, blah, blah. And had the same reaction from multiple people in this town, in this area. So again, when you see these things, when you hear these things, when you realize that people are being threatened, that should be noticed, I think, to the point that it's going to have consequences within the case at some point. It's even been stated that Brian was, and I don't know that this is true, folks. It's just a statement that was made that's part of the reason why Brian took a plea deal, is because him and his family were threatened, as well as his defense team and things like that. So these are problems. Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes trying to chase down some of these things that went on through the PD and everything,
right,
that may be more trouble than it's really worth to your case. And you have limited resources and limited time. And I think they've got enough things to focus on in what's in this complaint that they probably will make the decision, we're not going to overturn some of these stones over here because it's just going to open up way too much. It's going to cost too much in time and effort. And it's more collateral than these other issues that we think are a lot stronger.
Good point. And that's kind of what I was going to ask you, is if, knowing all of that stuff, if you were, handling a case and those types of things were brought to your attention, how would you approach something in that aspect? What would you do with something like that? You know what I mean? You
got to look at the cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
And there's some big firms involved with this, but they're still limited. And, you're not going to want to spend all your time and effort and money over here when you've got all these other things that very, very easily could help you defend against the case without having to go there.
Gotcha.
And I think these things that are laid out in the complaint are probably the things that are more important for Washington State from their point of view, while the other things are the stuff that we as the public are more interested in. Absolutely. But unfortunately, the public, we're not the ones running the lawsuit.
Yes. Very good point. Very good point. So we're at about 2 hours, 40 minutes. I know Ron came late, but that doesn't mean these ladies have worked all day. Ron has worked all day. Yeah. So I'm going to start to bring this down to a close for tonight, at least.
We can always, and we can do another one when there's more, when there's more pleadings that get dropped.
I was going to ask that, actually, if you guys would be interested.
Of course. And we'll know more on that 27th. And I don't know exactly what's taking place at that hearing. So if Ron and I got that wrong, don't hold it to us. I don't know exactly what that hearing is, the scope of that hearing is, but we will know.
One question I wanted to ask all three of you, since you're here together at this point, while we're here, I'm going to take advantage of it. As I explained to the two ladies before you got here, we have a secondary show we run here on Saturday nights called The Verdict Room Unfiltered. And I do it with another typically unique Bronx Tales True Crime and my producer, The Last 24. And we try to bring in experts and other creators and so on and so forth and break things down. Would the three of you together be interested in joining us on one of these Saturday nights to cover that stuff? And maybe, like I said, down the road a little bit, we can jump back into this again.
Yeah,
of course.
Wonderful. That would be amazing. I appreciate that from all three of you. I really appreciate your guys' time today.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm not going to let Ron off that easy. I have one more question for him.
Yeah, do it.
And it's got a lot of questions in the chat, but I personally am invested in this question. And I don't have the exact question, but Ron, with all of these inferences and potential audios and videos that we're hearing that there might have been a CI involved in this case, how does that come into play? How does WSU, does it come in at all? Is it protected? I mean, because if there was an informant and that was on Moscow PD or whoever was running that task force and it failed miserably, resulting in some unalivings, clearly that likely might not have been BK's fault. What does that look like?
I don't think they're going to be able to reach that at all. I mean, even in the criminal case, the police department doesn't have to give up the identity of their confidential informants, and they'll be able to make the privilege and whatever objections they would make to it in the criminal case, even more so in this case. And so I don't think this is the way that they're going to be able to get at that.
Yeah, and one agreed with you, Ron. Yeah, he said the same thing, that it was hidden from the grand jury as well.
Oh,
And
so
that
you're
was
just testing me because you already had your answer.
yeah, but I me, it's just kind of what I believe would be true, but I wasn't sure. Now, what if totally theory? What if BK was a CI, or not a CI? What if he was an informant or working undercover?
That's a great point. And yeah,
Ron looks like he wants to kill me right now.
No. I'm trying to think through the possibilities on that. On the one hand, it might affect, or might be a reason, an explanation for why he pled guilty. Although I don't know. And I think that would be up to him. Again, they're not, the law enforcement entity isn't going to give up anything about him being an informant. And I would not think that anybody who's in prison is going to want to testify that they were
voluntarily come out and say that they were undercover. Yeah.
Well, I had always wondered if there was a federal attachment of some sort to him.
Same.
Okay. That if there was, no matter what the scenario is, it would make some of this stuff make way more sense as to why he so quietly and comfortably just said, I'll do this, and this. Off he goes. And a lot of people have asked that question because it's with his background, I think, is where most of the thought process comes from. With his background, the fact that he went away for a period of time that his parents didn't even know where he went, and then reappears, your mind starts to turn these things out and says, did he go off for some kind of training and come back? Then he shows up here. We know that there were some weird things going on here. There was parallel investigations going on here, and then poof, this happened. So it makes you wonder. It truly makes you wonder.
Ron, what if they don't? What if it? Let me see. Carrie's question here, it was a good one. Did I just lose it? We don't really care who the CI's name is, but what if it becomes very evident that there was one in fact used? Does that affect the WSU case at all?
It might. I could see maybe a scenario where that might allow them to at least point to the law enforcement, even if it doesn't establish it or you don't know who it is. If there's some credible evidence that there's more to this than what we see, then I think that just kind of muddies the water for their potential liability. And I think they would want to do that. But I don't see a scenario where they would be able to get that information out of law enforcement.
Other than a video that potentially may sound like he's saying that there is one. I know that there's a mixed review of what people hear. But I think it's fairly persuasive.
No, they're not going to get anything from Homeland Security on this.
They're not, none of these entities, in my opinion, whether it's DHS, FBI, Secret Service, none of them, they're not going to give away anything to anybody for any reason. These entities, in my opinion, will sacrifice anything to protect what their investment is, in my opinion. So,
well, especially considering this is a civil case, it's not even if they were willing to see it play out in the criminal court, I can't imagine that they have a whole lot of empathy for
Sure. I mean, but in this case, you guys, this is why no question surprises me. No statement surprises me. This case has been absolutely upside down, inside out, sideways, left, right, backwards, all the way. Anything you can think of, it's happened within this case. So, I mean, if somebody threw a statement in here, or a comment or a question about, hey, did you hear that a spaceship landed in the Banfield and 3 little green dudes ran in the house? I would go look for it because I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? I'm just saying I would go look for it to see if I could verify it. So it's been an insane case.
There's a really good question over here from Right Turn Clyde. Yeah. And this is a really good point. If you plead guilty when you're not guilty, you've really you've really hurt yourself in your ability to get that later overturned. because you've now got a presumption and an admission by you that you were guilty. So you would have to show some very clear evidence that exonerates you or shows that guilty plea was coerced in some manner or obtained by ineffective assistance of counsel. Your burden as a defendant in a criminal case is very light. All you have to show is that there's a reasonable doubt that you committed the crime. Once you plead guilty and you get you try to appeal or pursue some of these other avenues, then your burden gets way higher than that, proving a reasonable doubt. You have to show, not even more than preponderance of the evidence. Sometimes there's a standard called clear and convincing evidence, which is evidence which would lead most reasonable people to believe in its veracity. And so some of what you have to prove on post-judgment stuff is that level. So yeah, it's not a good strategy for someone who is not guilty to plead guilty and then try to overcome that later on, because they just really shot themselves in the foot.
Now, real quick, I know we keep saying I'm going to shut this down, but there's so many questions. Let me ask you, well, actually, Twiz has one real quick, and then I'll ask mine. How do prosecutors and law enforcement get innocent people to plead guilty?
There's been so many studies and stuff about this that there are tactics, and you see it a lot, and they are horrible tactics where they can put enough pressure on somebody that person just to get away or just to get out of it or just to get it to stop will plead guilty to something that they didn't do. And you see this over and over and over. They have a lot of authority and a lot of pressure that they can put on someone. And sometimes they kind of push the limits on what they can do. And that is something that I just find heinous. But yeah, it over and over and over and over, we see people plead guilty when they didn't do anything. And just because of the pressure. So yeah, that's a real thing. And that's something, and likely you can be coerced potentially to enter a plea.
And that's thank you for that. And my next question that I had for you personally kind of rides off the back of that. You in the position that you hold, my camera's doing its own thing again. Sorry, guys. Have you seen cases where, and how many possibly, just in a quick jump, have you seen where people have pled guilty to something that they didn't commit, that they didn't do, and then came back later on and either came out of it or tried to, if I can ask it that way?
It's a bigger percentage than it really should be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think it happens constantly. This is an extreme example where people are saying, well, who would agree to this, and who would agree to spend their life in prison up against a firing squad? But think about it on a smaller scale. Like, there's a huge possibility that you could get convicted of something like a DUI, something like a minor thing. But if you take this plea, you get probation. But if you go to trial, you're looking at 7 years or whatever it is. So I think it happens constantly.
Too much. I agree with you.
I think a lot of times people just make a calculated decision that it's better to do that than not.
Yeah.
I'm sure, because we weren't in this true crime community back then. But was it Steve Avery?
Yeah, Stephen Avery.
That case. I watched all the stuff about that. I am convinced that both of them were railroaded into that, and that especially his confession was coerced. As an appellate attorney, that made me angry, because I saw so much there that really was wrong. And as an appellate attorney, I make my living banking on the fact that judges get things wrong sometimes, and that's one where I thought they get it wrong. And I tell people all the time. I wouldn't be able to work as an appellate attorney if the judges got it right all the time.
Sure. The Central Park 5, the 3, I can't think right now. Many a times we've seen this happen, but
yeah,
and it's like Sam said, the West Memphis 3. Thank you, nothing. It's so often that it does happen. In fact, I was looking at statistics about 6 months ago when Brian pled and did this and did that, and everybody said nobody would do that unless they committed this crime. That's absolutely not true.
No, I agree. I think there's a million reasons why people.
Yeah.
And I try to very politely, again, politely is the word I use, try to educate people that just because somebody pled guilty doesn't.
Yes.
It's like just because somebody's cell phone on is not, or they're allegedly on social media is not proof of life.
Right.
You got to connect all the dots. And Sam, I know you and I have talked a lot about this, but do you think that the way that Hippler was, and Ron too, the way that Hippler was making decisions and orders in this case, or what he was allowing, what he was not, do you think that had anything to do with Brian taking the plea deal?
I have had a lot of cases, divorces, where the way the judge has made rulings, civil cases as well, the way the judge has made rulings is affecting how, what I tell my client. I tell my client, look, if we go to trial, I expect the judge is going to rule this way. I don't think it's right, but that's where it's going. So we need to base a possible settlement on that. And the same thing when I would be negotiating personal injury cases where if we had, we knew, especially I did this a lot in Orange County, we knew who the plaintiffs oriented judges were. We knew who the defense oriented judges were. We knew if we were in front of one of the defense judges that, we better get what we can. We knew if we were in one of the plaintiff oriented judges that, maybe we could push a little bit. I think how the judge rules has a lot to do with it. And it very well could be, his attorney telling him, hey, we're going to get some bad rulings here. And this could really go south.
We're going down fast. Yeah. Sam, what do you think about Hippler?
Well, to answer your first question, I think that, of course, when someone's going to take a plea, they're going to consider everything. And you saw in this case a very quick turn. And I think that it's really possible that a lot of that is the pressure of the proposed case and your proposed defense going down the wayside. And understanding that if you're not going to get the information you need and you're not going to be able to adequately have a fair trial, and or you believe that you're really looking at potentially a firing squad, I think there's a number of reasons that, spending night after night after night in prison with who knows who is talking to you about what. I think that there's a lot of potential emotional, psychological pressures. And that's kind of why I said earlier, like, what if he's changed his mind now? What if that all came to a head where he said, yeah, tell me where to sign. And at some point he decides, no, I don't know if I want to continue on this path. So I don't know, but I do think that there's a lot there. And I definitely don't just take for granted that if somebody accepts a plea that like ipso facto means they did it.
Very good point, in my opinion.
Yeah. And think when we're talking with our clients, obviously divorce and custody cases are not nearly, they don't have the DP attached, but I agree. You have to look at the judge, you have to look at the circumstances, and, we have to show them all of the strengths and weaknesses, but sometimes there is a time where we have to say, hey, look, but they're not buying what we're selling. The judge has already painted you as the parent that is not co-parenting or that is alienating the child, and we need to pick, we need to pick from the two bad choices.
Yeah, I mean, in my final statement on that, what this part of the discussion we just had, with all the propaganda that has been ran through mainstream media from the moment that they came out and said, we found him, it's Brian at Christopher Koberger, and the moment they handcuffed him, they blew his house out, blew his windows out, kicked in the door, arrested him with so much overkill, in my opinion. and took him back to Idaho, and they filmed the flight, the whole thing, all the way there, and all the every day after day after day after day after day after day. The
very
propaganda that I
calculated.
call it, yes, that they ran on this to the very, very end, up to this point, even they're still doing this. Like we were talking before Ron got here earlier, when you have channels like Nancy Grace and Ashley Banfield, Brian Enton, even Vinnie Politan, which broke my heart because I loved Vinnie for a long time, but all of them, because they're reading from a script to receive a paycheck, okay, saying that Brian did this, Brian did that, Brian did this, the lies that they have repeatedly not stopped saying, all of that. At some point, the man was already convicted in the court of public opinion, in my opinion, okay, no matter what happened, whether it went to trial, didn't go to trial, whatever was going to happen, he was convicted to the world, to not all of us, but to the world. He didn't have much of a chance to do anything, in my opinion. So if you add that to the plausibility of threats and all these other things that are happening, that's why this man took the plea deal, in my opinion. That's why this didn't go to trial, because people keep screaming, but they didn't have a case, Dago. They didn't have this, they didn't have that, blah, 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 blah. But if you take all that and throw that in a blender and hit the button, guess what, guys? You have disaster if he didn't take this plea deal, in my opinion. So either way, he was going down, and I think he knew that. So,
and even if you think the prosecution doesn't have a case, it really goes back to, would you bet your own life on it?
Yeah, right.
It's easier to type it behind the computer screen that you would never take this plea deal. And you have to think, it really, the case took a huge nosedive after the attorney, I think her name was Bicca, was trying to get that alternate perpetrator theory. You know, they were really trying to push that, and the judge wasn't buying it. And the judge made some really ludicrous statements, like it couldn't have been one of those three people that they listed because they live in the same neighborhood. I'm not using the exact word. So therefore, they didn't have they wouldn't have driven their car to King Road, so therefore they couldn't have done it. And so we're not even going to entertain this theory. If you notice, when Hippler started making some rulings on that is where the case, in my opinion, took a huge nosedive. And I think that Ann Taylor and BK knew that they needed a life raft at that point.
I fully agree with that, fully and honestly. And again, I want to thank all three of you. This has been amazing again. It's been amazing to meet you, Ron. And I'm definitely grateful that you took some time out of your busy lives again, all three of you, and decided to, instead of going home and relaxing after a grueling day in court, you came here. So we all
this is probably relaxing for Ron. He loves this.
I enjoy this. This is well, a lot more fun than sitting on remote in a court hearing a bunch of other people talk.
Of course. And I appreciate that you enjoy your time coming with us over here and being able to explain these things to help us all understand the ins and outs and the craziness within these things. So I'm looking forward. Again, I will reach out and try to find the right date once I talk to my producer to have you guys come back and join us for that Saturday show, The Verdict Room.
Yes.
Definitely looking forward to that so very much. And at that point, hopefully there'll be a little bit more of this that has unfolded, unwrapped, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And we can jump into some more of this. So again, and thank everybody here for joining us for this tonight. This has been a really, really amazing show. Very informative. And it was a good time too. You know, it was nice to talk to you guys. Unfortunately, we didn't get Ron the full time, but
and you can also have Ron by himself for another episode. I think we would support that, so Ron can answer all of your appeal or civil questions.
Yeah,
but we just want to say thank you, Dago. Thanks for having us on again. This was awesome. We absolutely love you, your show, your community, your chat. You guys are all very welcoming and incredibly brilliant. We love all your questions. And we actually did a series recently on going through all of the forensic reports. We broke it down, I think, in 3 or 4 different episodes. I don't know that they're all out yet, but if you like the legal analysis perspective of that kind of stuff, I think you'll enjoy those. We haven't gotten to Dr. Turby yet. That will be coming up this week. But man, there are some real nuggets in those reports if you haven't gone through them. But
we might need to get back together just over Dr. Turby, because like that whole thing, like with that, I we could do a whole show on just that, truly and honestly.
On the
So-
prosecution's witnesses were not, I don't know if we were looking at the erroneous mistakes or the misnumbering or the fact that they came to conclusions that didn't even involve the right DNA. We were talking about Sam and Ron could cross-examine those experts for days and days and days.
Got you. So guys, like she just posted there, or they just posted there, part 1 is out, part 2 comes out tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in to Custody Queens Off the Clock. I'm telling you, everything they do, you don't want to miss anything. And Ron does join them quite often, which just adds to the little bit of I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, a little extra to the best of the best, in my opinion. So all 3 of them are just absolutely amazing. I'm grateful that you guys are in our community again. And I had another quick question I was going to present to you guys, and I forgot about it earlier. Would you have any issues possibly joining us again, whether it's that Saturday thing or another thing, with the 3 of you and Andrew joining us as well?
No, we'd love that.
Okay. Because I have communication with him. He's joined us. I love him too. He's absolutely amazing.
The more brilliant minds, the better.
Yes, I think all 4 of you together would be like, I'd probably implode myself. It would be amazing. So, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that was okay with you before I reach out and talk to him about it again.
And
so
if anyone has more questions for Ron, if you go to custodyqueens.com, you can get all of our emails right there. But Ron is more than willing to answer any questions that we didn't get to today.
And we do. We appreciate you, Ron, so very much. It's so it's exciting to be able to have the resources that you guys provide out here, all of you. You guys need to go get some rest. You guys, I'm so sorry that we did this so late, but
no worries.
And again,
this is not late for us.
I was like,
agreed. I keep forgetting where we're at different times. Again, amazing stuff. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you all so very much. I can't stress it so much. I will be reaching out to I think it's Alicia. Is that her name?
Yep.
Okay.
And we will put this on our channel as well to make sure that we can get it in front of as many people. And please make sure you like and subscribe and hype and do all of the things.
Thank you guys so very much. Have an amazing rest of your night. And I cannot wait to see you again soon. Take care.
All right.
Bye, Dago. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All right, you guys. Amazing show. You guys, I'm telling you guys, I don't care what anybody says to me, and I don't care who gets upset with me. I have in this community right here the most amazing, intellectually extravagant people here. You guys are amazing. The questions you guys ask, the statements you guys make, you're so very intelligent, folks, and I love it. I love what you guys do with this. When we have guests like this and you guys throw it out there, you guys keep it real, and you ask the right questions, folks. You ask the hard questions, and that is amazing to me, and I love you guys for that. I love you guys for welcoming them so very much, and I can't wait to do this again. I'm excited to have them on the verdict room with us. That's super exciting as well. With those other awesome creators that we do that with. I cannot wait. So guys, don't forget again to love yourselves and love each other. Don't change a thing. You guys are beautiful people. And don't forget here, just in a little bit, to tune in to the Devil's Advocates Crimes After Dark. 1-1 Robin, JJ Lee, and myself, and Miss Logan from Bronx Tales True Crime jumping in to answering some more hard questions and breaking things down. I'm looking forward to it, guys. I can't wait. So make sure you guys tune in there. Thank you to my videographer, Molly, my producer, Mikey, every one of my amazing, absolutely amazing moderators. Thank you all so very much. God bless. Anybody that may have donated to support the show in that aspect, you guys are amazing. Love to each and every one of you. For those of you I won't see tonight, I will see you tomorrow. God bless. Good night. See you very soon. Bye-bye, guys.
The coffee's cold, the final stain. We laid the map out in the pouring rain. No hidden corners, to creep. The dark truth woke while the city was asleep. The evidence lines up straight and true, a perfect picture of what they chose to do. The quiet street erupts in flashing light, a reckoning delivered in the night. SWAT serves the warrant, loud and clear, the sound of justice, the only thing we hear at the True Crime Cafe. We watch the suspect finally pay. The dark truth is backed and signed and sealed. The wound is closed, the name is finally healed. It's finally healed. The cafe's empty, closed for the night. We put the darkness back into the light. We'll wipe the counter, set the empty chair, and wait right here for the next secret laid bare. Until the next one.